I don't just use it for the podcast now. Like anytime I have to study or read or do some like clerical menial task, I light a candle.
Yeah.
And I've been like basically doing like Pavlovian programming on myself, you know, like every morning I do a journal entry, I light the candle and I'll put on like binaural beats. Okay, so the reason why like it's not that I'm a fucking hippie. It's not that like I'm one of these like min-maxing type like rich tech bros. It's just we were talking about like Richie's whole self-improvement kick, right?
Yeah.
So let me explain how that's going to go. Like Richie is going to get to a certain like first is the easy stuff, like eat better, sleep better, work out.
The initial things where you have like the beginner's gains, the initial
the fun. That's actually when it's fun. That's when it's good because you see
immediate results. You do a bunch of things where you're like, why wasn't I always doing this? You expect to have a similar curve before you plateau.
Yeah. So, but then like that's the easy stuff. The harder, tricky stuff is like the more esoteric shit. It's like, all right, I did this. It's like, what do I do when I'm not putting out bullshit fires? You know, like, well, I guess I have more time on my hands. So that's even, well, I already work out. I already eat right. I already get plenty of sleep. What else could you possibly do? Play music? You already do that. Now what? Then you're going to start like learning. Then you're going to start like exploring, you know, like if I've been playing music for years and I played my music for the day, I did my workouts, did my studying, did my reading, did my work, then what's left? New stuff, right? Which get, you know, like lets me dive deeper into like things like Pavlovian programming of the self-hypnosis and all that shit, and words
classical
like
conditioning,
manifestation, words, you know, that's all another it's basically a form of subconscious conditioning. But that stuff is also fun. Now, where does self-improvement get not fun? In my opinion, it's when like you get past the immediate benefits phase. You're clearly on another frequency, like a separate self, kind of a separate track. And the hardest part of that is when people who are already in your life can't follow you there. You know, like it happens a lot. Like where you'd have like, you know, people with like a solid group of friends, and then one person out of that decides they want more, which is okay, which is actually good. You know, you're supposed to want more than just your station.
Yeah.
They go after, they start working out. Suddenly, like their friends get like insecure. Suddenly their friends start thinking like really? Does he really have to fucking work out every day instead of like hanging out with us? Like what the fuck is his problem? Like, does he hate us? And it's like the person who's like improving themselves, they don't know how to say it because they don't want to be a dick. It's like, oh, I'm just better than you now. But at the same time, it's like, they don't want to be like, you're wasting my, you know, like I'm going to waste my time with you guys. So it's like, that's the hardest part. It's like everything that when you just answer to yourself, that's actually easy. Even if it's challenging, it's still like fun.
Yes.
It's hard when it's like other people come into the picture.
Your loyalties to others get in the way. It's kind of like, not even in the way. It just complicates things.
It's like a prior engagement, basically.
Yeah. You know, I'm fond of the movie Train Spotting, and something about the movie that I feel is underrated is it's weird to me that when people talk about Train Spotting, they really talk about how it's such a good depiction of having friends holding you back or conflicts with your friends. Like he's on the straight and narrow in his life, and things get complicated because his friends all come down to London, and then it adds all this drama to his life.
Yes. And
that's very true, and that's always an issue for addicts. It's an issue for ex-cons, like ex-cons trying to go clean. You still have friends that you care or love about, but they're still in the old lifestyle, and they, you know, drag you down. Or,
well, it's actually interesting you say that because that's a good excuse to be a fuck up. It's like, I mean, I'm not saying it's gonna fly in front of anyone's eyes, but I'm saying like, it's a good way to like rationalize it to yourself. Like, oh, I'm a fuck up because I just had the wrong friends, which is honestly valid. You know, like you are the 5 people you spend the most time around. It's like, what am I going to do? Be a bad person and fucking abandon them? Which is an interesting contrast compared to now. It's like the reversed.
Yes, that's true. I think people are too quick to suggest cutting people off.
And not only that, but it's like back in the day, yourself was rewarded, but you had to sacrifice your social life by cutting yourself up. Nowadays, it's like the more you isolate yourself, the more of this illusion of society you get acquainted with because of social media. Like, I'm not going to go hang out with these fucking losers. I'm going to sit at home and talk with my more interesting, more intelligent internet friends that think more like me, you know?
Yeah, which is it's nice to have people you're more in tune with in some ways, but there's a lot of things that are only coming across from being in person. When you have, like, say, if you're a type of person, I think we're in a similar situation where a lot of people are more just townies and they're nice enough, decent enough people. But a lot of your interests, both intellectual and just like recreational or stuff you're vibing with, I don't know. Your people around you are less likely to be in those things, whereas people from a distance, just because of the internet, you can select from everywhere in the world, and you're able to select or find the people that have your mutual interests.
Yes.
And you can lean on that more and more, and that's decent, but there's a lot to be said for just hanging out with someone in person. And, life happens outside, kind of. And every time you go outside, there's a random chance of something serendipitous occurring.
But the thing is, like, even the current paradigm, even that's going to fucking run its course, because what's going to happen is you have all these like separated, atomized groups, basically.
More so than ever in the past. We don't have mass media as you used to. When people say where the movie stars, a big factor is that we just don't have the entertainment ecosystem to allow it.
Or it's like you ask the average young adult, it's like, where's your friend group at? And it's like, oh, one of them lives in Minnesota, one of them lives in Florida, one of them lives in Vienna, and we all just talk all the time on group chat. So there's that. But then, like, the reason why this whole thing is going to run its course is because a hierarchy is going to form, because there's different groups basically forming. Yeah, they may not be in like physical proximity, but there's still different groups of people who are in contact, who are connected, right? Consciously. Now, because they're different groups, some groups are going to have a guy that has the resources, has the means, has the resourcefulness to actually host events, bring people together and say like, and this current paradigm is just going to put a magnifying glass on those kinds of people. Whereas back like 20 years ago, that kind of person was just, the ringleader of the friend group, but now the ringleader, that quality is going to take you a lot further than it did like when society was less atomized.
Yeah. Yes, actually, because everyone's waiting around for someone to do something.
Yep.
It doesn't. You don't have to be as competent of a social promoter to be a big social promoter.
And it's
kind of similar to how, because people are so dependent on dating apps, you don't have to be mystery Neil Strauss.
Yeah, just to pick up some pussy in person. Yeah.
Yeah, to do it in person, you probably can be a lot more awkward and have higher success than in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And there's different ways to like frame it. The way I look at it is just simple economics, supply and demand. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. Like, if the demand is high for like in-person hangouts, then the supply is going to meet that demand. And if the demand is too high, if the supply is too high on that end, then people are going to go more for like an atomized socializing experience where they could just press the off button on whoever they want when they have to. I mean, I look at it like this, like, this new paradigm is really good for like poor people. Like if you live in the hood, if you live in the ghetto, it's good to be able to connect with someone who doesn't live in the ghetto.
That's true. You can avoid the negative influences around you.
It's like if you
live be a motivator, well, maybe you'll just stay in your apartment, but hopefully it can be a motivator to inspire you to leave the area that's hindering you,
or to provide cultural change in the area. But that's more risky.
That's really hard.
Yeah, you're gonna get shot. Like if you imagine
living beyond getting shot.
No. I'm not saying like imagine living in O Block and like you came at the time when it's like everyone's shooting each other and it's like, yo, come on, we're about to run up on these fools, we're about to slide on these motherfuckers, and he's like, nah, I think I'm just gonna stay home and like chill on Discord. It's like what the fuck?
I mean, part of it's because one of the reasons why crime has declined so much compared to the insanity of the 70s is more surveillance.
Video games.
The population's older, but video games. Like literally young guys, like Boomer and Gen X guys in their teens, their 20s, would just go hang out on the street. They'd be bored and they'd look for trouble.
Yeah.
You just don't have, even when the young guys go out, they're going out presumably for more of a purpose, to go to a bar or whatever. It's way lonelier, less social, has a bunch of knock-on negative effects. But one of the positive effects is you just have less crime just because there's less young guys who are bored.
Of course. 100%. Yeah. I mean, I totally see that. It's like, but then again, at the same time, that adds, it's like a weird interplay or a power dynamic switch, like a reversal, where like in that environment where everybody was just like acting a fool in the streets, a guy like me who isn't like 6 foot tall, swarthy with guns and like a gang behind me, it's not gonna be a good time.
Yeah, yeah.
But now it's like where all those swarthy guys with guns are just like sitting at home scrolling TikTok for hours. I get to go out now and actually have like a time, even with myself out, out there in the wild. I don't care.
All these niggas are either in cells or they're in cells.
Holy shit! You should tweet that.
Yeah, I think I have before, but yes,
that is like prime Twitter material. Yeah, no, it is true. This goes back to what you were suggesting before, how like the online world is kind of killing or muddying the waters of like class structure.
Yeah, this was something I was going on, and hopefully it'll come to a more coherent whole through the course of this podcast.
Yeah.
In fact, it will, maybe.
Yeah.
A bunch of obvious class signifiers and divisions that exist in the real world or in real life that you pick up on, perhaps even subconsciously, are less obvious online. Now, people can brag about, can talk about like, oh, my family went on vacation every year, something like that's a class signifier. But broadly speaking, it's hard to tell someone's class when you meet them online. I've met rich neats, like people that are old money, and they act and have no judgment towards people who are also poor neats, as in they just see each other as being like the same group. Now, part of it is like both parties are socially incompetent, but it's been fascinating when I've met like an old money neat, and he is like, yeah, I vaguely know, or yeah, my family goes to Italy a bunch and I go with them, I speak Italian, but I like chicken tenders and I like Discord, and he doesn't judge people for being poor in part, or doesn't even know to disassociate just because he wants to associate with other similar internet guys.
Yeah, no, I could see that. But I think that's temporary. I think like whether it happens when you're 30, whether it happens when you're 40, whether it happens when you're 50, eventually like real life does fucking catch up.
It does. And looking back, neatdom is now it's like for a lot of guys, particularly guys, women too, but mostly guys, it's like being an opium addict. More so than a heroin addict. It's like being a 19th century guy just spending all of his time at the opium den high for 24 hours at a time. Time just slipping by in this.
Would you rather live like you're broke and never be alone, or would you rather not live like you're broke and spend a lot of your time alone?
I'd rather be with people. I'm a pretty sociable person.
See,
there's an irony wherein I like shut myself off from the world for many years of my life, but really it was just a way of finding people I wanted to talk to.
I was the opposite. I spent all of my young years socializing. I spent all of my adolescent years just outside with kids, acting a damn fucking fool in the streets. Definitely exceedingly by today's standards for sure, but even. Back then I was a little nerdy, but if you look at like me like back then now, like doing the shit now, it's like I would have seemed completely unhinged.
Yeah,
just the standard changed, and now it's like, because back in the day I didn't see myself having more than what I could see, like. But then now that I got more than I would have expected back then, it's like I don't want, because like it is true. Back to what we were saying before, they were holding me back. They really were. And it's like, I didn't choose to step out of their circle. It's just like when I was a teen, I got sucked into the system. I was forced to go into a group home. I had family issues and all that shit. So I was separated them by just circumstance. That gave me enough space and gave us enough time apart. So by the time I did reunite with my old friends, being on my own as an adult, they were fucked up.
Yeah.
They were like really fucked up.
Well, you went through frankly, a lot of people, most people have very delayed maturation, myself especially. But like, people in their early 20s are more like 12-year-olds from 50 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
You actually had a far more traditional, and by traditional, I mean all throughout human history up until the present.
It was hard.
Yeah. But you also had like, one of the reasons why greatest generation people got married in their 20s, or even boomers, is that they were effectively engaging in adult life in their teens. Whereas most millennials and most Zoomers are living not even child, but almost maybe more like 10. I don't know, I'm just guessing at ages, but a very close to the family, not interacting with peers all the time.
Yeah.
Kind of lifestyle until much later.
So I mean, and it's kind
That's
of
probably one of the reasons why Zoomers don't drink that much, and when they're probably putting off, becoming habitual drinkers for good or for ill.
for ill.
They would be better off socializing.
They're gonna
and
dip into it, and they're gonna get. It's gonna fuck.
It's going to fuck them up because they'll hit it harder in their mid-20s or late 20s than if they were experimenting with alcohol.
I think it's
going
gonna be more extreme. You're gonna have more Zoomers who are like crippled alcoholics, and you're gonna have the other half of Zoomers who never touched a drink in their whole fucking life, like very Puritan Protestant.
Teetotalers, yeah. Very Baptist. It's actually very Baptist. Puritans drink, Baptists don't. But, sorry.
No, you're right. And totally. And just for the record, when I say that, I don't always mean it sarcastically. Like sometimes it's just there's nothing else to fucking say, but like,
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I do think like half the Zoomers are going to be like that, and the other half are not. But
Zoomers in general seem to be trending towards extremes, where a lot of them are fuck ups, and then you'll meet a decent chunk of Zoomers, or maybe I don't know, 10%, 5% that are hyper optimized people.
Yeah, no. So okay, so this is the way the cycle goes. So let's say right now the generation it's a circle of cycle of four archetypes. We're the last of the cycle. The Zoomers are the first of the next cycle. Now the way
that generational theory thing?
It's a theory. It's my personal, but it's parallel to like actually tarot, but that's neither here nor there. So the cycle goes. You have one generation that basically is very extremes, right?
Yes.
Actually, no. You have one generation that's very adolescent, right? With certain traits like alcohol or or consumerism or something, right? Yes. You have one generation that's very fucking underdeveloped, immature. They're developing. The next generation after that is still developing, but they're in the extreme stages. Whereas the first stage was more like the Jack, in the suits.
Yeah.
They're happy-go-lucky, like the prince or the princess. They're fairly young. Whereas after that, you have the knight. And the knight is known for their extremes. Yes, they're brave and courageous, but sometimes to a fault. Meaning they will vanquish enemies, they'll vanquish bad guys, but they will also vanquish innocents just from their fucking... This also reflects in in their zealotry. But this also reflects in individuals. But also, like after the knight, after the extremes, then comes the queen. Now, the queen embodies like the trait that is... very, very natural. Like embodiment is the key word here. Like as if like I don't have to think about it. I don't have to try to be a certain way. This is just the way I am. So if you're thinking about drinking, like the queen generation are the ones who are just like, hey, I don't worry about drinking. I don't try to drink to be cool. It's just what we do, And then after that comes the king. Now the king is the authoritative manifestation of a certain quality or trait. The king is the one who's like, yo, I am the authority of drinking or of alcoholism, and then like there could be no worse than me, and then afterwards you reset the cycle. Cycles of 4. So it's basically the prince, the page, then the jack. Oh, sorry, the prince, the page, then the queen, then the king, then the knight, then the queen, then the king. The page is underdeveloped, the knights are the extremes, the queen is the embodiment, and the king is the authority. Right now, I think we are the page when it comes to like alcoholism and stuff. Then the next generation, the Zoomers are going to be the knights. Then after them...
So are Boomers the king? Or Gen X the king?
I think 4 generations back.
Okay.
Or no, the generation before us were the kings.
Okay,
like
Gen X.
So yeah,
Gen X.
And they were the
queens were boomers.
Yes.
Okay.
The queens.
The extremes of it can be seen perhaps among silent. Well,
yes, because of the Baptist or whatever you called it, like, yeah, the
teetotalism.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. In the Lost Generation, which was like the World War I generation. Before the greatest generation that fought World War II, silent generation, people who were kids during World War II. You had prohibition at the time, and you also had bootlegging and all this heavy drinking. You had all these veterans of World War I who were drunks, obviously traumatized.
But it was also the Prohibition era.
Yeah, it was, exactly. Those two extremes, so they were a knight.
Yes. And then after that came the queens, which were the boomers.
No, it would be
the greatest generation, they were
habitual drinkers,
and they were chilling.
They were chilling
on their drinks. And then after them were the boomers, and the boomers were the authority of the drinkers. Like they pretty much after them, right? Because like the boomers were the ones who like they didn't have anything holding them back. They didn't have culture holding them back. They didn't have law holding them back. The boomers could literally just drink to their fucking heart's content, right?
Yeah.
And then after the boomers came, no, wait. Yeah, after the boomers came Gen X. So maybe Gen X were, oh no, they were the queens. So it's, the knights, page, knight, queen, king.
Okay. So millennials such as us are kings then drinking.
No, we're the pages. We're the princess. The generation before us were the kings.
Okay, I got you. Yes.
And the boomers were the queens.
Undeveloped. That's why millennials millennials got into IPAs.
Yeah.
We were bold and adventurous and wanted to drink these terrible tasting beers.
We were fuckheads. And then meanwhile, the Zoomers, like half of them will never touch a drink. And the other half are going to go way too hard with drinking, bootlegging probably. And then the generation after that, they're going to just be natural. They're going to be natural about it. They're going to enjoy it. And the generation after that, they're just going to be uninhibited kings of drinking. Interesting parallels. Yeah, this is all just...
Generation Beta will be unparalleled kings of drinking.
Yep. That's going to be fun.
But then if they're Generation Beta, they better start drinking. Otherwise, they'll never have sex.
And these things will work.
Generation Alpha is going to be the last generation to have sex.
And these are going to be stretched out too. Well, sex. Sex is another one. So let's swap out sex. Where do we stand in that cycle when it comes to sex? Are we also the page? I think so. I think we're at the page phase of the sex cycles, sexual cultural cycles.
Yeah, that would make sense because if a Zoomer just read Neil Strauss's The Game or just had like a boomer great-grandparent who gave them standard dating advice, they'll clean up within their sexual marketplace.
Meanwhile, Gen Xers they had a much better handle on their own generational dating than we do or the Zoomers do.
Yes, they did. Yeah, I agree. They probably had the best dating situation.
100%.
Because boomers still had various conservatism and freakouts that they were doing with all the stupid...
And the PTSD parents.
Yeah, 60s sexual excess.
Yeah.
Gen X were liberated enough that they weren't total cads or lunatics or uptight about it. But they weren't going to...
They were just natural. They were natural daters.
They were natural daters. They would move to Seattle and live in a punk house and work at the video store or the record store. But everything was chill and normal. They weren't trying to optimize sex having. They weren't being poisoned by dating apps or...
They were just approaching strangers on the street and asking them.
Naturally. And I'm sure Gen X men on a whole were more respectful or less aggressive than boomer men.
Despite what... Floyd's were saying in the 2000s. Yeah, I mean, if you really look at like the way
Maybe what Floyd's were saying in the 2000s was a response to awkwardness already existing among millennials.
Or I think it was mostly just showbiz toxicity too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
because the greatest influencers were Hollywood stars, and they were getting like raped left and right. So then if they're getting raped, then all of America's getting raped. Shit. But if
the Hollywood stars are engaging in satanic rituals.
Then all of us are.
Yeah.
So if you look at like the Gen X dating world compared to anything after, it really does seem like a whole separate fucking world, like a separate, different planet. I mean, all you had to do was just like walk up to a stranger who was expecting to be approached because they know they're attractive and they're single and
yeah.
I mean, one good cultural artifact where you could really like see this was sitcoms.
Go on.
Aside from like your standard hick lower middle class sitcoms that featured life in like fucking Montana or some shit, all the urban libertine fucking sitcoms, they all showcased what it's like.
Are you talking about 90s sitcoms? Or are you talking about like Seinfeld, Friends?
Yeah.
The black shows that I forget their names?
No, not the black shows, specifically the Jewish ones.
Yeah,
those were the ones that really pretty much wrote the rules on Gen X dating. But then,
or perhaps we're depicting it too.
Yeah,
or a mix of both.
Both. Yeah, I'd say it's like both. And they were doing really good. Things were going great. Things were fucking going gravy. And I don't know, maybe it's the Illuminati decided it. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe it's just a natural collective cycling happened. But then Sex and the City came out, and that show really fucked everything up because like it basically turned the innocence of like the Friends, the Will and Grace style, Seinfeld style, like gay, fucking soft, peak dating, pretty much peak urbanite
Seinfeld
dating.
is one long series of absurd dating problems and flaws, but yes.
Or I was mixing it up with Frasier. Sorry.
Frasier, yeah, that's true. Frasier was more sensible, but yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, not sensible. It's that Seinfeld, due to its deliberately nihilistic tone, every single relationship would only be for one episode. But yeah.
yeah, I mean, but like they were still depicting them like getting dates, and if it didn't work out, whatever, it wasn't something to lose your fucking mind over. You just date someone else. And sitcoms from that era, they were either that or they were like about a family, like about an established married couple. But no sitcoms were about like lonely fucking losers,
No.
But then Sex and the City came out and that changed everything.
There's a bunch of like Master of None, Atlanta, bunch of other Ramy.
Like a show about a lonely fucking loser. The sitcoms about lonely fucking losers started to become a thing. I blame that on
Sex
a lot of
millennials. Yeah, a lot of millennials were living that life and found it relatable. Technically, Seinfeld's that, even though it's this tight-knit friend group.
Well, it's also I think the rule is you can't do things the same way as your parents. So by the time millennials got old enough, like they can't date like Gen Xers, not because it was right, not because it was wrong, just because it was the way their parents did it, and they just can't do it that way.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm speaking for my generation, so us. It's really we.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say like the only reason why we're not dating like Gen Xers is because Gen Xers are our parents. And we don't want to be like our parents.
Well, your parents, but yes. Or a bunch of millennials. I guess it depends. Even with millennials, because of delayed...
That's another... Okay,
because
I was going to add
boomers are the first people to really delay marriage and childbearing.
Yeah.
So my parents had kids with me, their first child, in their late 30s.
Yeah, I was going to say, though, like this... what also changes the cycle that we're talking about, what's going to change it, honestly, the reason why I wouldn't like
a bunch of friends of mine who are my same age have parents who are like 15 years younger.
Yeah. All right. So the reason why all of this is going to change, as you're kind of like alluding to, is that it's that people are living longer.
Yes.
People are maturing slower. People are getting to like life phases at a slower pace.
People look younger. When you look at old photos, everyone looks so much older, younger.
What does that tell you?
Probably there's some weird other factor going on, like people are drinking less water or something.
No.
But the bigger factor is raw maturity.
No.
18-year-olds now look like little kids, whereas 18-year-olds in the 80s looked like adults.
First of all, what do you think ages you? Do you think that's a good thing to like look older faster? Like, no, it's not. Like maturing faster is not good. Like we call it maturing, but no.
Well, it's short and long lifespan or lifestyle, life strategies.
Yeah. Do you know what really keeps you young?
What?
As a man, at least?
Lack of responsibility?
Semen retention.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't mean the practice itself, semen retention. I mean not giving up your mana towards relation. Like you could practice semen retention, but if you're like a bitch, if you're like the bitch of your friend group and you're just getting no respect anywhere in your life, that's also gonna fucking age you.
Yeah.
Even if you practice semen retention, you work a job you fucking hate every single day, and it's so fucking demanding physically and mentally, that's gonna fucking age you. Mm-hmm. However, if you're living like us, the way later generations are living, it's not. You're gonna age a lot slower.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Aging is not inherently a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's natural, but aging fast is definitely not.
Yeah, I agree. I think one factor is that people our age and younger don't have a good stages of life, or don't have a good way or understanding of how to aging gracefully.
I think we're going through a growing pains period.
Yeah,
our cluster of generations is in a midpoint between people living to a certain lifespan and then people like sort of radically expanding it, and we're in that middle point, like right before that singularity of radical life extension. That's why half of us look so fucking old and the other half look so fucking young. Yeah. It's because we're going through that as a species. We're going through a growing pains right now. We're developing.
Do I look older abruptly recently?
I don't know. I've never seen you without your facial hair, so
that's true. Do I look like I'm in my 30s thoroughly, whereas like 3 years ago I still look like my 20s?
You don't look like it. You just sound like it.
And what I'm saying, my voice itself.
I bet I sound a lot older than I look.
Yeah.
I bet if you just heard my voice, I wouldn't look like the way I sound.
I don't know about that. I think both of our voices are perhaps.
No, you're just saying that because you got this bias, subconscious bias, because you've seen my face.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I can't. I'm not
because I know this as a podcaster. Like I know this is true. Like this kind of like bias exists because like I'll spend like a lot of hours like listening to your voice, for example.
Yeah.
Or like other whoever else comes on the podcast and my own voice too. And I've been noticing some nuances in people's like cadence and everything.
Is it greater absurdity? Are they just becoming more cemented in their habits and who they are?
There's a combination of things. There's the timbre, like the raspiness of your voice. There's the pitch. Then there's like the content of the words that you use. There's how you say it. There's the cadence of it and all that shit. Yeah, I mean, usually you could tell a person's young by the way, by this, not just like the way they talk, but what they talk about too.
Yeah, your focus, your interest, what you're at peace with, what you're troubled by, what's on your mind.
Even like a really immature middle-aged person, like a 45-year-old with the mentality of a 20-year-old, will still end up talking about, it's like, yeah, I gotta go get my prostate checked, or I gotta
the body's still aging, regardless of how you live your lifespan.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still aging.
However, when the body's not aging, that's more of a sign that they're actually doing something right in their life, or either that, or they're not. You could call it in a sense arrested development. Like you just never took on responsibility in your life. You're like a man child. You never had to fucking work a day in your life.
Compare bums with full heads of hair versus working staffs who are bald.
Yeah, look at the presidents.
Yeah.
And on top of that, that's one variation. That's one variable. Another variable is genetics.
Yeah.
Like male pattern baldness, for example.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
So it's like there's that, and it is more. This is why I say we're at a midpoint. We're not quite over that hump. We're still like this weird in between phase where we're sort of like starting to age slower, which is supposed to. It was expected. I mean, we just didn't know what that would look like, and it makes perfect sense. Like I don't like. If you asked me like 15 years ago, like come up with the perfect diet, I couldn't do that for you. If you ask me now, I'll just go to like Chat GPT or something. I'll even like put in like lifestyle factors and age and height.
Which is what doctors do anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why like shit like that is the reason why we're aging slower without trying to. Now, if we added a little bit of conscious effort to that, then imagine like, then I mean, don't get me wrong. You could go like really way too far with this. Like, that guy, Brian Johnson?
Yes. Hasn't he abandoned his attempts to expand his lifespan?
No, he's like
de-age.
No, he tripled down in a really bad way. Like it was aside from like the weird shit, like drawing blood from his own son,
or when he was comparing his lengths of erections to his teenage son,
and he got massive backlash for that, which is really funny. It's probably the funniest.
I think at this point he's doing it or was doing it a lot as a bit. I mean, he's really doing these things, but he's doing it because he knows he's going to get content from it.
I mean, I did see one interview with him. He seems pretty sincere about most of it.
Yeah, he does.
The only thing is, like, I'm sure it's like he's a human being at the end of the day. He's not a machine. I'm sure he makes like he has cheat days or something,
Yeah.
But still, like,
it wouldn't be much of a life if you didn't.
But still, actually trying, compared to not even trying, like, it's got to make a difference. As far as like what the way he's doing it, I don't know. It's a little weird. Like if you want to stay young, you should have never fucking had kids, you fucking moron.
Well, I would say by having kids, in some ways you're staying forever young because half of you is in the kid.
You can't have both. Oh wait, no, you're right. I basically, I agree with you. So what I'm saying is
you age in your own physical body, but you plan something in the future.
That's the deal.
That the best. Living your best carefree bachelor life, 90-year-old guy on the French Riviera. You're better than almost every other 90-year-old, but in some ways you're worse than the guy who has kids, and there's a big part of him that's still that's young and living out there.
Yeah, that's true.
It connects you to the future and to responsibilities and also joys or meaning in the future that you wouldn't have otherwise.
This is why in Jewish mysticism, they don't really let you engage with material from the Kabbalah unless you're like traditionally like 45 years old with kids and a family.
Yeah.
I guess, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, shit, like maybe I should have waited to get into mysticism. It's because I understand it. I'm not criticizing it at all. Like I get why they would do that. It's because like, you know, when you don't know this, when you don't know esoteric wisdom, you're just like, all you're doing is just going by models that society presents to you and being like, start a family, have kids, join the community. These are all good things. These are the things that keep humanity going. But then after you learn mysticism, it's like, I don't have to do any of that if I don't fucking want to. As long as I'm not hurting anyone, I could do whatever the fuck I want. And there's nothing you could fucking say about it. And Jews can't have that in their ranks. So they'll say, before we give you the power, this understanding, this perspective, you must first do the Jewishly duties of getting married, having kids, and then we'll introduce you to this. But you won't go too overboard then. You'll be manageable. You'll have something to lose.
Yes. You won't lose yourself in it because there's something always connecting you as an anchor to the real world and to life.
I think one of the weirdest things that millennials are going through compared to our predecessors in generation wise is millennials with kids are able to more often communicate with their single peers, despite like traditionally, like for Gen Xers, for example, it's like once you had kids, you really only hung out with other married couples who had kids, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Millennials, just because they know so many single adults, are just going to keep a greater connection with them.
But now that we could really compare lifestyles, like really cross-reference it, what we're starting to realize is that like, you know, it's ironic too, because like a lot of these millennials who end up with kids were like leftists at one point, or at least like far left liberals.
Well, they're often from a middle class background. They have a more stable family life. They're probably more pro-social in a bunch of ways.
Yeah. But then ironically, like after they have kids, they realize that they didn't know this before they had kids. But then after they had kids, like a lot of these millennials must have thought, even if I have a family, I'll still be a leftist. I'll still fight for the proletariat. I'll still fight for what's right. And then they have kids, and then it's like, and then you look at my views compared to like their views, and it's like, you have something to
single
lose.
People, particularly single men, are way more inclined to radicalism because they have that lack of responsibility. And
you call it a lack of responsibility.
I don't mean it negative. They're able to be pure.
Yeah,
they're able to have that rigor that gets compromised when you have kids or when you have obligations or even when you're in a relationship.
Look at it this way, like Nietzsche never had kids, and yet we all know who Nietzsche is compared to how many fucking no-name fathers who made no-name kids who made no-name grandsons. Like,
well, they both had different ways of preserving their legacy.
But one is more, I think one is more noble inherently.
Yeah.
One is just more necessary, but the other one is more noble.
The one that's more noble also requires a particular talent too.
Yeah, but talent could be cultivated.
That's true.
And ironically, the only way it could be properly cultivated is if you cut out distractions. Like,
yes, that's true.
And let's talk about that. Like, how natural is that drive really to like breed and have a family and have kids? I'm sure on an animal level, yeah, it's natural.
Well, I think the desire is to have sex.
However,
and then that just naturally always happened, but nowadays it doesn't.
What do you mean? It happens all the fucking time.
I mean, it does, but I mean, due to birth control, the animal drive is not necessarily to have a family. The animal drive is to have sex, and naturally that always resulted in it, or usually resulted in kids. But now it's possible to have a lot of sex and not have kids.
Okay, fine. So the desire to have a family is reduced to a desire to have kids, which is reduced to a desire to have sex. Great. Sex is natural, fine. But how much of our sex drive is really natural? How much of it is actually natural, or how much of it is like being
cultivated,
programmed into us?
Yeah.
So that's a good question. You know, yeah, we could sit there and say, oh, it's natural to have sex. It's natural to want to have kids. It's natural to want to start a family. Yes, this is all probably true. However, even in the framework we're thinking about it, it's still mostly serving an economic like basis, you know, of human existence. It's not really serving our individual good and our happiness and our emotional well-being. It's basically this current paradigm of how you think of responsibility, having kids, having a family. It's not to serve the individual. That's not really good for the individual as it is for the economy.
It's good for the economy, and the economy lacks it because a lot of people aren't having kids.
That's not true.
But what?
A lot of people are fucking having kids.
I I'm talking about within America, well, actually everywhere except
No,
Africa.
in
Where?
America, people are fucking having kids. You know what your thing is? You're just speaking from like a relatively high IQ person. The fact is, relatively high IQ people aren't the ones having kids.
That's true. Our fertility rate.
But trust me, a lot of people are having kids.
Well, the total fertility rate of the country is lower than it was in the past.
I mean, the rate, yeah, but I think the number of people is still going up.
The population is increasing, but in part due to immigration and due to the people that are immigrating and having kids.
I mean, I don't think we're over. I don't think we're over that cliff yet. Because like, I still think a lower percentage could still equal out to higher numbers every year than like if we had a lower percentage than last year. However, we are going to get to a certain point if that percentage.
You're right. The total population is increasing.
Yeah. But however, if that percentage,
even if the birth rate is low, the total population continually increases. A good example is within almost every single country, birth rates are pretty low. Much of the population is emptying out, but the big cities of all those countries are growing every year.
Yeah.
New York City, London, Tokyo is a great example. In Japan, Japan is filled with ghost towns because everyone young moves to Tokyo.
yeah.
So Tokyo grows every year, even as Japan's population decreases on net.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much it. And it sounds confusing, I guess, when you put it that way. But that's
Well,
the
no,
way
it makes
is.
basically a few cities everywhere. You keep thinking, why don't people? It's so expensive. Why don't people move elsewhere? Well, the cities are the only place things are going on.
Yes.
100 years ago, a second-tier city had a lively nightlife.
Yes.
Not like Springfield, Massachusetts,
Buffalo,
New York. You could go out in 1900 in Buffalo, New York. You go out on the town, you have a great time as a young person.
Yes.
Now it's almost impossible to do that.
Yes.
And you could also, all within the same town, raise a family, be at any stage of life, a child, a young adult, a married with kids, an old person, and enjoy the city. And now a lot of places in America are basically just propped up by old people, Social Security, a subsidized hospital.
A hotel or two run by Indians.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in a conference center where companies have a reason to go and book a cheap conference place.
But everywhere in the world, all the smaller cities and towns that used to be lively are dying, drying up, and the big cities just get bigger and bigger. But because also they're so expensive, that decreases fertility within those cities.
Well, all right. So you say that, and that's true. I agree with everything you
Maybe
say.
everyone being close together, a bunch of other factors, I'm sure, too. Go on.
So like
please.
the main nodes, the node cities, the main ones that everyone's flocking to.
Yeah.
They're flocking to those cities because of the culture, because of the cultural value, and the cultural
Because
capital.
jobs are there, cultural values there, people
I'm
are
just
there.
saying jobs aside, because I'll get to jobs in a minute.
Okay.
But what you were saying about the cities that were once good, you know, like they may not be.
They weren't as Buffalo wasn't as fun or as incredible as New York in 1900, but it was probably a functioning city.
I think what made those cities good, those mid-tier but still good cities, it was manufacturing.
Yeah, manufacturing,
plants.
the employment being there, was a huge factor.
But then once like manufacturing becomes so streamlined where
it's being done overseas,
or you're greatly reduced
number of people need to work it. There aren't people working there getting a wage and then spending it in the local town.
I was thinking a lot about this buying my Mustang, actually, you know, the history of Ford.
Yeah.
And like what it must have been like to live in Detroit when Ford, I mean,
Detroit was the golden city in like 1900.
Yeah. Detroit still, I mean, Ford still does all of their shit in Michigan. That hasn't changed, but you're right. It's nothing like it used to be. I mean,
yeah.
Now people are
Riots
scared to
didn't
go
help.
to Detroit.
Yeah, riots really fucked over Detroit, boy.
But this is why, like, you know, this is why people are so scared of like large union strikes and large large bodies of employees of a major corporation like going on strike. Like, it's a big problem because it could make another Detroit pretty much.
There's other unique dynamics, racial dynamics, about immigration trends. I don't know, real estate, a whole bunch of things led to the decline of Detroit or the destruction of the city.
At least, you know, I think like Detroit's just going to become like neo China or like one big Chinatown eventually. You know,
Really? Is there a high Chinese immigration there?
no, it's just I know that a lot of Chinese people are buying up like manufacturing space in America right now, like a lot of Chinese companies.
Interesting.
I mean, it makes sense. Like that's what I would do if I was.
I mean, I guess there's two ways of reading of it: of either being infiltration by the Chinese, the foreign Chinese body, or alternatively, it is Chinese capital leaving the country and coming to America.
I think you definitely have a lot of the former, but it's
Yeah.
probably mostly the latter.
Yeah, because especially after COVID, rich people in China can look around at the system and say, do I really want to be involved in this? Do I really want to be in a country where my assets can be seized? Maybe I'd rather go to America where that can't happen.
Well, I also just look at it in terms of what immigrants have always done.
Yeah.
You know, they've always been like, well, what are we going to do when we go to America? I'll open up a barber shop, or we'll open up a restaurant. You could cook your mom's borscht. Or it's like, what am I going to, you know? What are we going to do in Brooklyn? It's like, oh, you could just open up a dress shop. And back then, that was the next level up from that now is like a Chinese couple who saved like $500,000. Like, well, what are we going to do? It's like, oh, we'll go to America. We'll open up a fucking
Laundromat.
or a Dollar General.
Yeah.
Or if they're millionaires, which is what a lot of because there's a lot of like wealthy people in China now.
Yeah.
They'll come to America. They're like, well, what do you want to do here? It's, well, we'll open up a manufacturing plant.
Yeah.
We'll buy out one of these abandoned factories and fucking retrofit it or whatever.
We'll see how the Chinese economic model functions in the coming years.
Well, it's also technology. I mean,
Yeah.
like, nowadays, any fucking like we went from hipsters brewing like beer in their fucking basement to like hipsters are getting like 3D printers, and now getting like making like little kitschy
3D
tchotchkes.
printing does suggest that it can lead to a return of cottage industry.
No, it's already
Already
here,
has.
dude. Like you just look at Etsy. You know?
Yeah, your Etsy shops. You're right.
Yeah.
I know. I paused the conversation there so I could crack my spine and arms. Excuse me.
No, it's fine.
Where are we now at time?
Hmm?
Where are we at time?
We're less than an hour.
Okay. What else is going on in the world?
You want something to talk about? I got plenty.
Yeah, give me a subject.
I thought
here.
you were just thinking about what to say about these Chinese people. Oh,
Well, I don't know. What can I say about the Chinese?
No,
Here's
no,
wait,
no.
I got something.
do you got?
China is functioning a lot closer to fascism than it is to communism. It is not expansionistic or a death cult, but it is this state capitalism, national socialism that exists to advance the interests of the Han Chinese. In many ways, China, you'd be better off calling China a fascist state than a communist state. But all these terms are also left from back in the 20th century and have very little relevance today.
Shit. I mean, I wish I knew more about China. I just
Yeah.
know Chinese people.
Yeah.
Like doing martial arts. There's like a lot of Chinese people who get interested, even in Japanese style. But like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Do Chinese people, I'm just going to call them Chinamen, do they have any kind of neurosis or fondness for certain martial arts? Do they have like a snobbery where they think Japanese martial arts is better than Chinese, or is just what they want to do for sword fighting?
I think most of the Chinese people that I see practicing, at least I could only speak for Japanese swordsmanship. I mean,
Yes.
I did see some badass Chinese karate practitioners. They were fucking crazy. Like they were real. They were the real deal. But when it comes to swordsmanship, even speaking as a Korean, because I don't even think I got it properly 100%.
Yeah.
But I think like Chinese people are having trouble tapping into the spirit of it.
Interesting. I could see that. It's almost like they're spiritless bugmen.
I mean, I try to like explain it because I could explain all the mechanics and they'll
Yeah.
get it like that. I'll tell them exactly what to do with their bodies and they'll fucking do it. But then when it comes to the more intuitive shit, like,
Yeah.
I want you to attack it as if you're trying to kill somebody, or I want you to attack me as if you're trying to kill me, or I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
But it's like it doesn't register the right way, and I don't think it's a Chinese thing. I think it's also just like a certain type of person thing, you know?
Yes.
Like you know,
That's the people that are being drawn to this Japanese swordsmanship in particular.
and white people could tap into that aggression, but they don't know how to rein it in with the technicality. So it's like the Japanese people were somewhere in the middle. And as a Korean, I feel like I get it only because like I don't think it's a Korean thing for me. I think it's just a me thing. It's because I was always interested in tapping into the spirit of something. You know, that's just the way I am. Like whether it's cars, whether it's bikes, whether it's martial arts, or whether it's music, I'm
You're a
really
very intuitive person too.
100%. And that's why I was able to like tap into the spirit of martial arts because, you know, like the technical stuff, yeah, that takes time no matter who you are, no matter how intuitive you are. Your body has to like understand and become stronger. Your mind has to understand these things. But it's only like even after you get that, you still, it's just like what we were talking about with AA. You know how like everyone's always focused on the mental, the physical, but they don't really care for the spiritual. Meanwhile, it's really the third leg of the stool. Without that, the whole structure collapses every single fucking time.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sorry, I don't mean this offensively, but I do kind of look down on like strict materialists, just as I kind of look down on like strict intuitives or like strict jocks. You know, it's like I don't like that. I don't like that incomplete perspective. I'd rather
They're not being a full person there.
Because they're not contradictory. People think like they're going to have to sacrifice everything about them if they suddenly adopt a spiritual perspective, but it's not. It's not the case at all. It just completes it, if anything. I think you got the paper backwards or something.
Yes. Whoops. Okay. Also, the papers are running low, I think.
I got plenty.
Okay.
I got lots of papers. I got papers out the wazoo.
Nice, nice. Well, the second time I've done this. Well, this is fun when you're going on at length and I can pause and fumble with trying to roll a cigarette. I want to get good at rolling, even though I don't normally smoke rolled cigarettes.
Rolling too. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It is an intuitive thing. And I think certain things like you need both. You need to have like that mechanical, logical, rational sequence of initiation. You need that. That's definitely important. That's the structure. That's your control.
Yeah.
But the variables will always happen. You know, you can't stop variables. That's why I think like I was able to get my finances so unlocked because like when I try to stick to a strict plan, never works. But when I create a framework for myself where I give myself something, it's like a diet. You know, it's like you give yourself a little bit of space to cheat, you know?
Yes, yes.
So if you know how to like modulate margins for yourself in everything you do, like that's a huge help. Even if you do learn something like strictly like logically from first principle, I guess. But martial arts, you can't do that. Like martial arts isn't some field of study. It's not like painting. It's not like music. Like you can't just first principle your way through it because there's going to be some guy.
The first principles were done so long ago, and all the people you're going up against have already gone through first principles.
Well, also, like, let me give you an example. Imagine two guys in a fist, or two wrestlers, like Greco-Roman wrestlers.
Yeah.
They both same build, same height, same age, same skill level, but one just loved the sport more.
Yeah.
Who do you think's going to win?
Guy who loves it more.
Exactly. And that wasn't logical. Like that's not like one. You could say one was forced into it. One voluntarily learned it. You know, and so you could say they both were at.
Well, I suppose I don't know how much time they spent on, but yeah.
But no, let's say they both spent the same amount of time on it. You know. But even you intuitively, without really thinking about it, knowing that there's no logical reasoning behind it, but you know deep down in your heart that the guy who loves it more is probably gonna fucking kick his ass. Like So yeah, it matters, you know, and that's not materialist. That's in fact that goes really against like a lot of materialist dogma.
Yes, you're right. That they say that it's just whoever has the talent or the ability.
Yeah,
the material skill, whoever weightlifted more, who has more of a feeling for it.
Yeah, and fuck. I mean, I'm noticing it now with like martial arts practice, but as far as so back to the Chinese people with like you know, tapping into the spirit of something. I think it's like I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of Chinese people who could tap into the spirit of something, but maybe there's something about the Japanese way of doing it that's just a little more alienating to the Chinese like perspective.
It's just so much more soulful than what the Chinese bugmen are capable of.
Oh, don't put it like that.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was going to be a totally situation.
Sorry, that's what I should have said. That was a total.
I was feeding you a totally opening, but I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to.
No, because it's too totally for me. Like,
Oh,
that's so.
this is totally too.
It's totally too. I was like it's so. I didn't say you're wrong. I said, oh come on, don't still put it like that because it's so fucking true.
It's so true, but it's so awful the way I put it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but again, like there's certain things Chinese people could definitely tap into the spirit of, and there's always exceptions too. Like I know a bunch of Chinese, like again, we were talking about karate. I've seen plenty of Chinese people who are Japanese as hell about karate. It's just karate's a different thing from swordsmanship, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe Chinese people you could say are better at karate than Japanese people. I might even say. First of all, karate comes from kung fu. If
That's true.
There would be
They're just better at memorizing the forms.
yeah, but then swordsmanship is like. It's more precise.
It's more precise. It's more flowing.
And it's also, if you get hit once, you're done. It's not like it's not like a
exactly.
fight where it's like if you get punched a bunch of times, if you got guts, you can get up every time.
Yeah, and Chinese are great at suffering. Chinese love soldiering through intense pain. So just getting the shit kicked out of them and just having a lot of endurance, that's a Chinese skill.
Maybe they're more afraid of death than the Japanese, though.
Yes, Japanese embrace and delight in death.
Yeah.
They love their suicides.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Chinese people have to be pushed to despair to be able to fight to the last breath.
Yeah, all those cowering Chinese peasants, spearmen, and their massive armies, where they're just pissing themselves, holding their little wicker shields and spears.
I think you're right. I think if you did
It's
look,
probably the high population of China also favors this kind of Zerg tactics.
I think you're right. I think they might not be as like gung ho about things as like some other armies. You know?
Yeah. Maybe there's something to the Romance of the Three Kingdoms wuxia stuff, where a small number
Maybe?
of trained, definitely,
bro, definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, those are noblemen who are far better nourished.
No.
than the Chinese peasants they were slaughtering at El Mas.
I actually know a little bit about like Chinese, like modern, and this isn't like ancient. This is modern Chinese military doctrine. And the thing about it is, it's very, very weird.
Yeah, how so? It's about managing the particularities of the Chinese populace.
The only way I could explain it is to compare it to American military doctrine. Now, in American military doctrine, we make plans, and we make plans in case plans fail, and we make plans on how to make plans, and we even make plans on how to choose people to make plans on how to make plans. Seriously, it's like just redundancies on top of redundancies. That's how Americans do it. And this gives, the redundancies provide us such a level of precision in our tech, in our tactics, in our manpower, in our strength, in our fighting force, that's what gives us our superiority. However, we haven't overtaken China.
Yeah.
Now, China doesn't do that. China doesn't have a system of redundancies on top of redundancies on top of redundancies. You know what they do?
What's that?
They don't see any point in planning, because they're like, because first of all, like no first contact, so like no plan.
No plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Yeah. So they know this, and they ride this to the core. Like that's what controls them. And on top of that, it's like they know they can't outgear us. They know they can't outkid us. They know they'll never have better weapons or better like fucking equipment. But what they can do is they can generate more of something. Even if it's not as good, they could generate more and they could equip more. So now going back to the tactics, it's actually really funny. When you look at like military orders like passed down the chain of command, it sounds like poetry. Like the way it's recited, the way it's delivered, like it's pretty fucking crazy and it's very weird. And like another different thing is like Americans are very logistical about war. You know, like even down to the training, they'll be like, "We're going to train you in a way to min-max." They're about min-maxing, right?
Yes.
So they don't waste time with like flashy shit unless that's your specialization, like a marching band or something, or standard marching drills. Yeah, sure, you got to learn that, but that's like standard. The Chinese soldiers are expected to learn like kung fu and shit, and like display like kung fu skill like in like synchronized way. Basically, shit that American soldiers would be like, "What the fuck is this?" Like,
It lives up to national stereotypes, certainly. But they have those army demonstrations. North Koreans do this too, where they're jumping through flaming hoops, they're breaking cinder blocks.
Yes, and also they're very poorly equipped.
Yeah. They're so poorly equipped, they're just relying on punching through cinder blocks rather than shooting a gun.
Yeah. And they also basically they give like commanders of units more leeway on how they do their shit. You know, so like basically like let's say you're a lieutenant in command of like
Yes.
of a company.
Yes.
And like I as a colonel gave you orders and that you just did not agree with, but you as a well-trained officer will follow it to the fucking T. In China, in the Chinese military, they don't fucking do that. You know, like you'll have like a leader, like a lieutenant of a platoon or a commander be like, this is what our orders are, but this is what we're actually going to do. You know, like, and they'll get away with it. I mean, I'm sure they'll be like, if a Chinese military bugman were ever to like listen to this, he'd be like, "No, you are wrong. This is all wrong. You're fucking, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about." I'm sure, and they're probably right. What the fuck do I know as a Korean American about Chinese military doctrine?
Yeah, just upload this to Red Note, and you'll get a lot of follows from angry Chinese nationalists.
But just from the little bit I do know about it, it's pretty fucking weird. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's worse than us. I'm just saying it's fucking weird. I'm almost jealous. Like imagine if our military was running like that. I mean, if anything, it's like imagine if you replaced our whole military with just the National Guard.
Oh, interesting. But much larger National Guard.
Yeah, and that's
interesting.
And that's the Chinese military. So for China, you'll
We've
have
engaged in bullshit shooting wars in the global war of terror in the Middle East. China has not had a hot war in a hot minute.
You're right. No, that's true because
I guess what are their engagements been? Not sword fights, melee fights in the Himalayas with the Indian Army.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
I wish I was there.
That is cool. They have this thing where they have an agreement not to use gunfire, and they'll have brief borders clashes that never turn into a real war.
Dude,
but a couple of guys die, and like dozens of guys get injured.
I think I'll participate in that. Honestly, like if you paid
the
me
Chinese or Indian side,
whoever paid me more.
It'd be fun if China India had a mixed martial arts
sword mercenaries, like like you'll have like the best machete fencer from North Africa, like coming, and then it's like, oh yes, it's him. Like
we're just describing Bloodsport, but with
private military contract
with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah. What a great movie!
Yeah. Fucking yeah. So in that kind of skirmish, I would side with whoever paid me more. But you can't trust a guy like that because, like, you know, what if the other side pays, like, made you a better offer, like, in the midst of battle?
That happened a lot in Italy in, like, the 14th, 15th century with their condottieri, whatever, mercenary wars.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But, like, sometimes, like, I wonder, it's like... Because every state supposedly has their own National Guard, I think. Maybe not every state. I'm sure there's some states that just aren't big enough to have their own National Guard.
Imagine being a member of the Rhode Island National Guard. I was going to say Hawaiian, but Hawaii at least has all those military bases, so maybe they don't. But Rhode Island National Guard.
They probably spend a lot of They probably have a lot of downtime. It's probably chill.
Yeah, National Guard does in general. Let me see.
Not all National Guard. First of all,
I'm looking up Rhode Island National Guard.
They probably have like some obscure unit with a cool looking badge with a gay little animal on it, like whatever, like a bird maybe, or maybe a sea critter. Anyway,
they do have a National Guard. Yes.
And what does their emblem look like? Their insignia. I hope it has an animal on it.
It is a anchor and it says hope.
That's pretty cool. Oh, well, the hope is kind of gay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Rhode Island National Guard, the strongest fighting force in America.
Yeah, that's the yep.
Oh, man.
Excellence in the 21st century. Nice name.
The motto, yeah, it's their motto. Every military unit needs a motto. They need an insignia and a motto. An mission statement.
Let's see. Island Force Militia for the state of Rhode Island.
I bet Massachusetts has a pretty decent National Guard.
Yeah, it does. Active duty, floods, hurricanes, civil unrest.
Active
it is cool. Active 1638 until present. That's pretty cool.
Well, I also just want to say, like, the National Guard does have like a lot of things to do other than just kill people. You know, like
They mostly don't. Yeah.
no, there was a really
They
bad.
have to fight Godzilla if he shows up.
Yeah, and but yeah, or Cloverfield.
Yeah.
There was a really bad situation though after 9/11, I think, when the National Guard was mobilized to go overseas, and it was like the biggest fucking disaster.
Oh, everything with Army Reserve, National Guards.
Army
overseas.
Army Reserve is different.
Different,
They're
right.
they're just fucking like pogues, you know, like
Yeah, that's true.
But the National Guard, like, they're not bad. I don't think they're bad, like, at their job. It's just that's not their job. You know, like, I mean, I don't know anything about military service, but I do know the National Guard's job is not to go to the fucking Middle East to kick down
That's
doors.
true.
You know, and, like, shoot Hajis. Like, yeah, that's what they call them in the military.
Yeah, I know. Even if they're just protecting a base, they're out of their league.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know what else to add other than the fact that was just a bad fucking idea. Because, like,
Yeah.
could you imagine, like, if I was a guardsman in, like, here where I live now, I would report to, like, Fort Wadsworth, like, whatever, every so often, like, probably like every, like, maybe 2 weekends out of the month
Yeah.
or something, and then do your drills or do your training, do your whatever. But you, as a guardsman, you don't want to not be busy, because then you're not making fucking money.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing a job, you still have to report to training, so that's going to be time taken off anyway, because that's just your duty. So as a guardsman, you want to be a guardsman. It's pretty much a volunteer thing. So to be able to be in a National Guard position where you're actually getting work consistently and getting paid for it, that's very rare. However, in the tri-state area, that's pretty common because there's a lot of, there's a lot of airports after 9/11. There's, like, there's subway, like, interstate subway stations and all that shit.
You have a lot of posts to be posted to. And I suppose in New York, well, I don't know.
No, New York is one of the best places to be.
Yeah.
Best places to be in the Guard.
Really interesting.
You want to take we're at the halfway point.
I know. I'm probably spacing out here. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, you want to take a recess?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Come back on. Yes.
All right, we're back.
We're back with another exciting episode of the Terrorisk podcast. I'm here with my co-host and guest tonight, Chris Kim. How you doing, Chris?
Good. Honestly, I think if you lived, like, alone,
Yeah.
I think you would be on your phone less. Ironically.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Less distractions, more focused on things. Being on the phone is a way of getting away from other people.
I mean, that's just true for everyone.
Yeah, providing a solitary experience.
I mean, when you're in a
And then
place you
your
don't want to be,
experience-
what do? You pull out your
Provide the
phone.
phone. Yeah.
I usually pull out my phone when I'm like, I didn't notice this until, like, I realized, like, I was at a bar, just chilling, relaxing, drinking by myself, because, like, why not? You just do that every once in a while. And then
Yeah.
I found myself pulling out my phone. I was like, why would I do that? Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't do this if I'm alone at home.
Yeah.
Why am I pulling out my phone in a bar? Like, so that's how I caught myself. Like, I was like, oh, I didn't realize people did
That
that.
is a good rule and something I should be conscientious of as a phone addict.
What? Well, we're all phone addicts.
That's
I'm not-
true, we all
I'm not
are.
speaking to you
I
as
know.
if, like, yeah, I'm a
No,
phone
I know
addict.
it's not kind of thing. We all are. It's interesting. It's part of a
But I
broader
mean-
tendencies towards of addiction within our society.
I'm saying the only time I'm not a phone addict is when I'm truly alone. Like, even when I'm at the dojo, like, I'm around people, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I should go check my phone. But when I'm, like, alone, like,
Yeah.
in my home, like, I never look at my fucking phone. Well,
Yeah.
probably because I look at my fucking computer all the time.
Yeah, that probably does a lot of it. But yeah.
Yeah. But in my defense, like, I think looking at my fucking 4 monitors is a little better than looking at just one small screen. Because at least, like, while I read a person's shit post, I'll have, like, a documentary playing.
Yeah.
So it's not all, like, just brain cell shit. Like,
Yeah. Mega brain force. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, then again, that could work against you, because that means that's like, if you're a gooner and you have 4 monitors,
Yeah, that's true. Depending on your level. Well, everyone there's just more things to be addicted to in the modern world. So far more people are addicts of one kind or another.
You know what I'm surprised I never tried, that I'm sure plenty of people in my position have tried? Like, if you have more than 2 monitors, if you have, like, 3
Yeah.
to 4 monitors, like, I'm surprised I haven't put on like a separate porn video for each screen, full volume.
Well, that's just that's gooning.
That's goon maxing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right. You have, and as someone who struggled with it, as part of your semen retention policy, you've never engaged in proper
I mean,
multi-monitor.
I've had three to four monitors before semen retention. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but you never got to that point.
Is that what it is? Is that what we're gonna call it? You have to get to a certain point to do that?
Of depravity, of the multi-monitor goon maxing. How about this? Like a guy's going through a midlife crisis, and he's like, "I'm gonna become a gooner." So he buys a bunch of different monitors, and he gets into different or entry-level gooning videos.
You know, it'd be fucked up if
what's that?
Okay, so privately, he's like to himself, in midlife crisis, I'm gonna become a gooner.
Yeah,
but he's like. But in order for me to become a gooner, I'm going to have to fund this somehow. So what he does is he starts a YouTube channel and reviews top-of-the-line computer monitors.
Yeah.
Like the newest ones, like 10K monitors or some shit.
Yeah.
And then he would like post like in-depth reviews and he would get a lot of money for it. And what does he do with that money? He buys more monitors so he could go heavyweight with
it. He just has a wall of monitors with different pornography playing at the same time.
And then by the time he's like 50, he's like a millionaire, but he doesn't even realize it. He doesn't even care because he's like, dude, you're a YouTube millionaire. You make the best like review videos of computer monitors, you know, on YouTube. And he's like, oh, do I? I didn't even notice. It's like, how do you not notice? Like, don't you love this? Like, don't you have a passion for this? And he's like, nah, this is just kind of my side hobby. You know?
Yeah.
My true passion being jacking off to illegal porn I found on the dark web.
Yep, he just has all of his child torture porn up on the wall on his various monitors as he's doing his million view of video reviews of new monitors.
I remember when I was when I first started like
gooning,
I felt like a weirdo, but now I'm like looking back, I'm actually pretty proud of it. But when I was like 11, 12, I started gooning.
Yeah, I
wasn't gooning to porn videos. I was gooning to like
hentai.
No, like worse. Like really dirty fan fiction.
Yeah.
And it was I didn't talk about it at the time because I thought it was very weird. All my friends were like looking at porn.
Yeah.
But like looking back, I was just
acclimated. It's really it's what women goon to.
Yeah.
So
like back then
tuned you to goonettes.
Like when I was 11, 12, like my idea of porn was like sex.com.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I was like 15 did I realize like the hardcore shit that's actually fucking out there. But but when I was when I was like gooning to fan fiction, like you know, I was at that age where I would also like, because I was living with my aunt and my uncle at the time.
Yeah.
And like I would go through their shit because, you know, I've known them for a long time, and I was going through my shitty age phase, adolescence. I went through my uncle's computer.
Yeah.
I found some gooning material there.
Yeah.
I never mentioned it at once, but I saw like horse stuff, like European lady horse stuff.
Yeah. Interesting.
And you know, everyone's got their shit. I've looked at some weird fucking shit before, I'll admit it, but that I wasn't expecting that from him, you know?
Yeah.
Like at the time,
it seems like such a refined perversion.
But at least as a kid, like as a I didn't freak out about it. I wasn't like, oh my god, what is that? I was just like, you know, I didn't even know to say like, I guess that's what he's into. All I just thought of it was like, I realized back then,
very nonchalant about it. Yeah,
I just wanted to look at something I wasn't supposed to see. Whether it was,
exactly, the taboo violations that you're interested.
But looking back, it was probably a little weirder now. You know, like considering like they recently got a divorce. Like that's what brought it up. I wonder if his
wife isn't a horse.
I wonder. That told me
he divorces her and marries Sarah Jessica Parker.
Oh God.
The horse, his ideal horse-faced woman.
And they did introduce me to Sex in the City too. Well, they never watched it with me, but like
they had HBO.
That's how I found out about the show, is through them. But yeah, it's but anyway, like as far as gooning material goes, it's like that was strange. So it's like that. I mean, and you know what? That instantly after I saw that made me feel way better about the fan fiction. Yeah. I was like, maybe I'm not that weird after all, you know?
Yeah.
Also, I heard that from women that it's very elegant to get off on like words on a page.
That's just like a
Foyd thing. Yeah.
Foy thing and a female bias thing where they're acting like their
Perversion is more higher than.
Yeah, it's their rad femme Hitler bullshit they're going off on.
Yeah, but then again, I know some like really degenerate chicks who really do get off on really degenerate. Like,
Yeah,
it's not
that's
even
a lot more modern too, I think.
Yeah. Like like
And I've dated
like
women
the bull black cuck stories and like werewolf like rapist guy fantasy.
Or girls who are into yaoi, or girls into hentai in general, which I've dated several, but
Yeah, I don't know. I was never really into hentai. The only thing
never either. It just seems confounding to me, but
yeah. Also, it's like I couldn't get into hentai because maybe I would have been into hentai if I was raised Asian, right? If I was raised in Asia.
Yes,
Because I'll be like, all these girls look alike. You know, but then like growing up in America, it's like you got MILFs. You know?
Yeah,
you got,
you're right. You have
teacher-
just so many more categories, and it's all real too.
Yeah,
real
like,
footage. But
like hot teach. Well, also like I was growing up like with hot teachers in my schools and like hot MILFs like picking up their acting hot. You know, like Italian middle-aged women like showing up.
Oh,
like, fucking,
this is your Staten Island upbringing. Is that you have a developed an interest in MILFs because you're surrounded by Italian moms.
yes, yeah, and Italian Irish moms. Some of them were fat, but they were still like boner and dude. I don't know how to explain it. You know, like they had the right.
It's
nails
interesting
and
that
hair.
things that turn you on or interest you as a teenager. I was very self-consciously shut off sexually as a teenager, so I mean,
No, me too. But I
I
still
didn't
like
interact with women either. I repressed my attraction to women very strongly as a teen.
Yeah. The only time, like, honestly, the most fun like I have like flirting, it's with like
with a middle-aged woman.
yeah.
Interesting. They're probably also much better flirts than younger women.
It's not even to do with them. It's just like you know how like we both should post, like you should post on Twitter, I should post on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like all the women that like my stuff all happen to be like past 30, 35, past 40. Like for some reason they kind of get it, whereas the younger chicks, the hot 20 something, they don't get it. You know, they don't understand. And maybe it's a maturity thing. Maybe I do think more like a middle-aged fucking woman.
Maybe, yeah. Well, that's what your demographic is, your market is.
No, I mean, it's not even like what I like per
No,
se.
I meant
It's
like
just-
that's what you appeal to.
I don't know how I appeal to such women, but you know, maybe they just like my youth. Or maybe to them, it's like, you're who I should have been with when I was in my 20s. But I was too stupid. You know, now I'm old and wiser. And now I know you're an actual...
Maybe, or maybe I don't know, or they were always interested in someone more like you. And I don't know, it was, when you were younger, you grew into your sex appeal to that demographic.
Maybe. It's also, I don't know. I mean, oh, yeah. Okay. I know what it was. I wasn't so alienated from my parents from like a whole generation gap. Because remember, I was raised by Gen Xers. I wasn't raised by boomers.
Yeah.
So I understand Gen X mentality like very, very well.
Yes.
So I think that's why I could like get into like a Gen X woman's head.
That makes sense. Gen X in general is like this gap for me because like I have cousins who are Gen X, but
You know what the Gen X women really are like?
What?
They're like centrists. Like seriously, like I don't
who
know.
are in their 50s now.
No, 40s, mid 40s, 50s, even
Mid 40s to 50s, I guess, because like the oldest millennials
Are
are
like-
like 40, mid 40s at the latest.
yeah. So even like older millennials or mid 40s, like I could appeal to them because
Yeah.
I know what they're like. I know what their political leanings are, and they're all centrist. The only time I've ever seen even like an older's 30, a young 40s like
Yeah.
woman like who's like very liberal, they're fucked up.
Yeah,
Like
makes sense.
they're either trans, they're either fucking poor, they're either drug addicts, but
Yeah.
you know, most of the level-headed people that in that age who aren't dead or in a cell or in rehab or whatever or fucked up, they're centrists. They're not leftists, they're not conservatives. That's for young people. Like extremism, radicalism, that's a young person's game. Older people just want to chill. That's what I've always been about. When have you ever known me to be a political radicalist about anything? Anything. Nothing.
Nothing. The most radical thing you've been
Semen
about is
retention.
semen. Yes, I was about to say that. Fuck.
That's not political. You know, anyone could do that. I encourage both leftists and fucking conservatives to not goon.
Leftists and
For fuck's
rightists
sake.
be semen retentionists.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I can't force anyone. I will never even try ever to force anyone to do semen. I can't. It's impossible. But like, I do encourage it.
You're just texting all your friends, don't jerk off, nigga.
No, I'm more of the type to be like, you should journal, because I do that.
Yeah, you do. Which I
Not just with
appreciate.
you. I do that with a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, like, because when I get them started, I'm like, don't forget. Because it does really make like massive changes to you in short order. You've only been doing it for a week, but it's just give it like a little bit, and it's gonna change things.
You're right. You're right. And also a week and not even fully, but yeah, like 5 days, but yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna change. Just because it's no matter what. I know this, right? If you could stand to do it more than once, you enjoy it. Because the only people who don't enjoy it couldn't even do it more than one time.
That's true.
Because like usually the people who can't stand it can only write one journal entry and they're like, I'm never doing this again. And that's nothing to do with journaling. That's more to do with them, their own perception of their own voice, their true writer's voice. Because remember, like what you write in your journal, no one else is going to read. Meaning that is the purest form of writing you're ever going to do, beyond any kind of shit posting, beyond any kind of article or blog.
Anything that's being performed for the public eye. This is another thing about Zoomers and younger, is that everything they're doing is for the public eye. They have no sense of a private self.
And you know what? That also kind of makes me want to push
it all the more. You're right. So they actually have a means of privately communicating or writing, and there's a significance to doing it by pen in a journal as opposed to a file on your computer.
And it's the same with semen retention, because it's not even like I have to go that hard about promoting it. It's just all I have to do is talk about it, say I do it, and actually do it. Because doing those three things is enough to show people there's other options than just gooning and not gooning at all. Like,
yeah, you're right.
There's other options. Like, you don't have to look at it in a strictly moralistic sense. You can look at it in a framework of energy. Like, you're giving up your jing. Don't and
you're real.
There's actually a really funny Chinese or Mongolian, I don't know. There's a funny myth or story about this. Or it could be true. I don't know.
There's a funny Oriental myth about this.
Yes, a funny Chinese myth about this. So you had Genghis Khan. He was Chinese, much like Nobunaga and Kim Jong-un.
Totally.
So you had Genghis Khan, and he was at the height of his power, and he was like, "I want to live forever." He was looking for the secret to human immortality, and he got word from
a Taoist monk.
No, I forgot. I think he got word from a farmer or something.
Okay.
Or someone. They said, yes, there's one guy who's like over like 100 or 200 years old or something. He's like, I must see this man. I think he was a monk or something, the one they referred to.
I would assume Taoist, just because it's in China.
And then they bring this man before Genghis Khan, and Genghis Khan goes, so how do I live forever? And the man looks at Genghis Khan and he says, well, I'll tell you exactly what I did. I don't talk to women. I don't look at women. I don't sleep with women.
Zero stress.
I stay away from women. I don't go anywhere near women. And that's how I live forever. And
yes.
And you know what Genghis Khan says?
Why?
He's like, thank you. And he just didn't listen. He's like, I don't want to live forever.
Yeah. What's the point of living forever without some primo pussy?
Yep. You're telling me.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. You're telling me that I could live to be that old if I just don't get any pussy?
Yep. You'd be a true wizard, but I just couldn't do it.
But the thing is, like, it doesn't work the same way for incels. Like, you have to willingly give it up. You have to be celibate, not...
Well, incels are effectively sex and love addicts.
Yeah.
Without having sex, they basically have psyched themselves into a sex and love addict mindset.
Or more like, well, to the animalistic sense, is an orgasm addiction. Yeah, orgasming. I mean, hey, if you could keep yourself from orgasming when you don't have to keep yourself from orgasming,
when you least expect it, yeah. You can have sex with women without orgasming.
No, I just mean, like, I don't know. I mean, but the question is, like, is it really like one drop of semen, 10 drops of blood?
Oh, yes, yes. That's something from Chinese medicine, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. What I do know is my life is vastly different ever since I stopped jerking off to porn. I still
Yeah.
have sex, like,
Yeah, occasionally.
but even that, I mean, even that, like, I'm not really interested in it anymore because what is that going to get me? Like, I might as well just look for a wife now. You know, I might as well just look for like
That's true.
a real woman, and not even look for her, just become the better man and attract the better woman, right?
Yes.
So that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm just going to be like, you know what, fuck it. And, you know, like I've been working out. I'm, you know, working really hard in martial arts. I got my job. I keep asking for raises every year. Hopefully I could keep doing this podcast and maybe someday some generous group of patrons will allow me to not have to work at my job anymore and I could just do this full time. And, I mean, I don't know. As far as the podcast, that's not up to me, but everything else that is in my control. So it's like, I already got my Mustang, you know, I do martial arts.
Where have you talked about your Mustang, which you bought today?
I mentioned it, but
Mentioned it. Yeah, it's a beautiful ride, man.
yeah, I got a new car, a new Mustang. Well, it's an old 2005 5-speed manual 4.0 V6 Mustang. I mean, I don't talk about it so readily because, I mean, you know, to a layman, it's going to be like, all right, it's a Mustang. But once you're a Mustang owner, as a Mustang owner, you know, it's like, oh, you got a V6. What are you, a woman?
Yeah.
You know, and I got a V6. So it's like, I get that. I understand.
You're not a
why.
woman, you're just Asian.
Well, I just,
So the big factor is, I think you said, it's a manual, and most people don't know how to drive it, which is why you're able to purchase it.
but no, it's totally because I'm just Asian.
Okay, well, fair.
It's totally. No, but really, I got a great deal on it. And,
It's a beautiful car. It's a wonderful yellow that I never see. And that's such a distinctive car. You'll pull up anywhere and people will comment on it.
a bright yellow. I hope not. See, that's what I was hoping to.
I'm sorry, man, but if you drive that into New York, you're going to have a bunch of guys.
Nice V6 faggot.
No, you're going to get a bunch of autohead niggas and white niggas and black niggas all telling you what a sick ride it is. Maybe other Asians in particular. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't know car culture.
Me neither. I'm not really that much. I mean, now I have.
It's a very distinctive vehicle to have, is all I'm getting at. It stands out compared to every other car I know of someone owning, with one exception.
What I've always loved doing is whether it's car or just clothes or just style in general. I always love to toe the edge. Like,
Yes.
just noticeable enough where you notice it, but not noticeable enough where it's like you know you don't want to say anything out loud about it. You know what I'm saying? Like something that's like just the way you do something or the way you wear something. It's not outside of the norm, but there's something a little flair about it that if you brought it up, it would be uncool.
Yes.
You know, you just have to let it rock. That's my favorite thing. It's like it's somewhere between peacocking and just being a fucking like cookie cutter normie. You know, like
Yeah.
that's my shit. I like that. I like that. But you're the type, because it also like affects like who that interacts with. So you're the type who's very detail oriented. Like you will
Yes.
notice details, period.
Yeah.
Whether they're a cookie cutter normie, you will go out of your way to notice something in that cookie cutter normie that does stand out. So which is like very frustrating for my brand of, you know, like like intrigue. You know, like I'm like, fuck. How do I get this guy? So I have to refine my technique even more to find that perfect balance. Subtlety, I guess. That's what it is. Subtle cool. But the car, yeah, I was hoping the car is subtle cool, but I guess it's not.
I think, no, I mean, it might not be, it will stand out as a character trait that people will be very impressed by.
Well, there's two ways Mustangs stand out, right? I mean, well, the three ways aside from just being a Mustang, but like there's the color of it, the visuals.
Yeah.
Then there's the sound.
Yeah.
And that's what the V6
I mean,
lacks.
everything about it. You have your leather seats, which you keep commenting upon.
Well,
Yeah.
that's because I just came out of that fucking lesbian Subaru Outback, and it's like just dealing with cloth seats.
You went from a lesbian vehicle
to a lesbian vehicle. I mean, it's the perfect blend of manliness and
It is.
femininity. The lesbian car. You got to get the lesbian car. No one could claim you're overcompensating. You know, like,
Yeah.
hey, I got the lesbian car, right?
And let me see. What if a bunch of Latinas are suddenly into you because of your car? Because aren't Latinas big into car culture?
No, I don't know. I think all when it comes to women, I think like it's a fair, equal exchange of all women who are into cars. I mean, it's already kind of a niche thing amongst women, but like, yeah, I mean, a lot of women are into it though. But yeah, it's like, oh, the lesbian car. I mean, the thing about a Mustang though, it's like it is a chick car, and it's not a man's car. I mean, now like
it fits you very well as a vehicle.
no, I just want to. Thank you, but I just want to say in like 2025, like yeah, you could say like there's variations of Mustangs that'll rip your fucking face off just driving it. But originally by design, the Mustang wasn't ever designed to be like a sports car. It was originally designed to just be like a good-looking daily driver.
Interesting. When was this?
1970, 1960. Well, the first Mustang was a plane. Then after that, the first car was it was in the 60s. It was the Mustang 1/2. That was the first one that was ever released. And the first one ever sold, I think, was sold to a woman.
How do you feel about a Mercedes-Benz 770?
I've never seen one. What does it look like?
That's Hitler's car.
I'm trying to remember. Oh, no, it's a nice car.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was anyone but Hitler driving it, I'm sure anyone would say that's a nice fucking car.
Yeah.
Like,
A lot of people will say it particularly because of that reason, but it is a very handsome automobile.
yeah. I'm iffy about over-engineered vehicles because I'm not that, I don't have money like that. And I'm not a retard. Like if I buy a car, I want a car that I could maintain and manage. And you know, a lot of people without money will buy a Mercedes, and then they realize it's a money pit, you know, once they start driving it in stupid ways. And then a guy with a lot of money will buy a Mercedes, and he'll be like, what the fuck am I doing? I could buy something way better. You know, maybe it's a very specific kind of stupid, like upper middle class, you know, for a Mercedes to make sense, but it's not me.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think like I don't have enough passion for cars to be a racer.
Yeah. Interesting. Go on.
At the same time, I can't do the standard like fucking. I mean, for practicality reasons, yes. Like when I'm a poor young person, I could drive a fucking Subaru Outback like manual, but like I don't know. It's just that. I mean, the car broke down, so I can't even drive it. So it's like if I'm gonna get another car, I'm not gonna get the same thing. And if I'm gonna get a different car, then I want something that's fun and that could, you know, it's within my means. And
you're right. As a single man, makes sense having that car. And you have back seats in it, and you have a trunk.
Yeah, and it's faster than most things on the street.
You said that it doesn't feel fast or that.
Oh no, it's just because I'm used to driving a slow piece of shit. Well, that's the best part about driving slow cars is that when you drive a little bit fast, it feels like you're driving a lot of it fast. So when you like rent a car or something, you're like you end up speeding without realizing it.
You're gonna have to be way more cautious in your current vehicle, I suppose.
Me? Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, when you drive manual though, it's like it's different. Like it's hard to lose track of your shit, you know?
Yeah, interesting, because you're more focused on driving.
I mean, that's why it's...
You're a very skilled driver, I've noticed.
Well, you're only saying that because I never crash when I drive like really fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. Too fucked up, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's because when you drive, first of all, when you drive manual, that's like an unfair advantage for drunk driving. Like you have to focus. There's no room.
Yeah. Like, to zone out.
No. And even if you're sober, there's like no room to like, I know a lot, like I noticed myself doing, when I visited Tennessee, I had like a nice roomy Toyota just cruising in automatic. And, I was like looking at my phone. I was like watching like YouTube and shit.
Yeah. You're engaging. Okay. Manual keeps you from engaging in danger.
110%. If statistically that is the truth, like manual,
both the act of driving manual and the type of people who drive manual are both inclined to be better drivers of more focus.
It's a double jeopardy. In a positive way, but yeah,
it's a compounding effect.
Yeah,
it's a multiplier.
Yeah,
multiplier.
And that's why you'll get really good deals on manual cars over automatic. Like there'll be like people who drive manuals tend to like get into less wrecks. They tend to treat their cars better. Also on top of that, like less people, like less stupid driver, like less manual cars goes through less hands, generally speaking. And It's also like it's a good anti-theft thing. Like if someone were to break into my car, it's like, yo, let's steal this shit. Chances are this fucking idiot couldn't drive standard nowadays, you know?
Yeah. That's a nice bit too. Is that,
dude? It's elite. It's an elite quality. It's an elite thing.
It's a crime deterrent because no one can steal your car because they don't know how to drive manual.
It's like writing in cursive.
Yeah.
Which I can do, by the way. Be jealous, you fucking monkeys. Apes, uneducated swine, can't even write in script. No, it's because I was taught how to write and read by Catholic boomers, and if there's anyone
who really grinds it into you,
yeah. So they taught me how to write in cursive. They taught me a lot of things. They taught me how to. I think that's why I'm so literate. I'm so literate because I was taught how to read and write by Catholics. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, you guys can hate all you want on the church, but at one point, the church was like
really grinds into a lot of people a lot of good skills.
Well, I mean, at one point in history, the church was the source for education.
It was, yeah.
They were the only.
It was something that held together Europe for a prolonged period of time.
Kings and queens were not teaching peasants how to read and write. The church, the monks, the friars, they were teaching peasants how to read and write. Which was what led to the Western Enlightenment. Let's be real here. So for all you Jesus-hating fucking mongrels, fuck you, okay? Fuck you. I mean, I know the church did a lot of bad shit, like.
But fuck you. But fuck you, atheists.
Fuck you, atheists.
Yeah, this is a pro-theist podcast that's bringing back the atheism versus theism wars of the aughts on the enlightened theism side.
But I'm not going to lie, I do bump heads with a lot of theists because I'm not like, I don't identify as a Christian.
Yeah.
Which drives a lot of people crazy. And also I don't identify as a Buddhist, which drives a lot of fucking Buddhists crazy because I say a lot of shit that they resonate with, you know? So then they're like, you sound like a Buddhist. It's like, like, no, I'm not really into that either. You know, I don't want to stand behind any banner. I want to show that this is for everyone. Yeah. Spirituality is for everyone. And New Age can't even ruin it because like any New Age fucking idiot will try to like say whatever to me. And I'll be like, well, can you beat me in a sword fight? Can you drive stick? You know, like, let's see your physique, bitch. Like, fucking weakling, vegetarian motherfucker.
Yeah. Not here. We're a pro-lean protein podcast.
Pro-balance. But also, I don't know. I mean, I get that I'm privileged in a lot of ways as a male, as a non-gender dysphoric male. And I understand that alone is a privilege. But you know what? You know what did teach me that no matter what the feminists say, no matter what society says, no matter what capitalism tries to do, no matter how badly oppressive forces try to enslave us, ultimately, biological males have the upper hand. No matter what situation they're in.
Imagine being a woman and you can't name any World War II planes. They just name a World War II plane by accident because they ask a woman, how many World War II planes do you know? They'll say 0. And they've accidentally named the Mitsubishi Zero. Yo, I'm not a big World War II
Oh man,
I'm not a big World War II guy, but I'm not a big plane guy. But off the top of my head, I'm like B-52, Mustang, Spitfire.
It's so good.
Obviously a 0, which I just mentioned. Can you think of any other World War II planes off the top of your head?
Luftwaffe?
Yeah, well, yeah, they're just the German Air Force, yeah. I said the obvious ones, but basically guys have a baseline of like 5 World War II planes that are just, it's like, you ever look at those lists of words that men or women are more likely to know? The women's terms are all like very precise terms in like in food and tailoring and makeup. And guys are way more likely to know words like katana. Which to me, that's not obscure.
Or harakiri.
Yeah. To men, those are words that are very hot. Bushido. It's cross-cultural because there's a whole bunch of black and Latino guys who will know those words too.
Yeah, no,
But
definitely.
women, regardless of race, and forgive me for focusing on that, that's probably a big modifier here, but women, regardless, will not know those words. And I'll be like, what? You don't know what a katana is? That's happened to me multiple times when the news story says a samurai sword, and I got pissed that I didn't write katana.
Yeah, you're right, but there are relatively easy
Yeah.
exceptions to point out, and I think it's always a bitch who reads a lot of books.
Yeah, it's true.
And you do have a lot of bitches who read a lot of books.
Yeah.
And they know all the words, just like the guys do.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with guys. It's really the guys who read a lot of words, who read a lot of books.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a guy who reads a lot of books. I'm a guy who read way more books than an idiot usually does.
Yeah.
That's really what I am, and I'm okay to admit that. I'd rather be the jack of all trades, master of none. Although, I think I'm kind of losing that privilege rapidly.
Yeah.
You keep doing something over and over again. Eventually, like no one else could do it like you. Yeah. So I'm not talking about this fucking podcast if that's what you're thinking.
No, I know you're not.
Yeah, the podcast. I'm just happy I do it for sure. Just from starting Terrorisk, I've come into contact with so many people I would never have, and I got to spend time with people I never would have. I got to talk to people I never would have. I got to learn things I never would have. So regardless of how small the podcast is, at our meager 128 subscribers, thank you all. It's been a very rewarding experience just learning how to make a podcast.
Yeah.
And maintaining it has not been difficult.
Well, you just have to get a steady release schedule, right? And edit the videos and release them.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel bad if you're maybe this is why. If you're a person in a specifically a specified oral specialization, like a comedian, a public speaker, a politician, a writer even, and then you start a podcast, your passion is always going to get in the way of podcasting. It's always going to be at odds with it's never going to feel right. It's always going to feel like a bastardization of what you truly love. So I could see why the best podcasters often get not into it, because they're no, what I do is way better than and they're right. If a writer were to tell me I'm not going to lower myself to podcasting, I'll be like, good, you're right. Podcasting isn't for you then. You're better than that. Podcasting is more for guys like me, guys with really niche passions and interests that are outside of those kinds of specialized word fields. And then this gives those word people a chance to engage with that, outside of just reading books from prestigious authors and shit. I'm not even saying that's what this podcast is. I'm not even saying I'm that valuable as a sword guy or a car guy or a music guy or whatever the fuck we talk about. But what I'm saying is my favorite podcasts are usually not from people who are good at speaking, are usually not from people who are good at writing or coming up with words or things to say. My favorite podcasts come from people who are interested in things, and the only thing that I would say this podcast has going is that yes, I'm interested in a lot of different things, but I'm very interested in those many different things. I'm not just they're not just superficial interest for me. All those many things I'm interested in, I'm deeply invested in them.
Yeah.
Too invested, I would say. Fuck. I just get very into shit. Podcasting though, fuck. I definitely, it's not something I would encourage, but it's not something I would detract. Every time someone says they're thinking about it, the funniest people are the people who hate on podcasting. I don't like podcasts. 2025, we should get rid of podcasters. I'm all right, good luck with that. But
well, it's interesting because podcasts have been around since the early aughts, but they've only taken off last decade.
Is that your favorite era, the early aughts?
I think I'm really obsessing on it because of youth nostalgia.
Not just you,
but in general.
Look at me, dude. I'm still riding fixed gear bicycles. I'm driving an 05
early aughts
Mustang.
were a bad time for me, but
No, they
Early
weren't.
tens.
No, they were
a
a
great
bad
time.
time. No, I think early aughts were the worst time for you when you were going through it, but they were the best time looking back at it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I
Because
wish I was
yeah.
not going through it at the time. It was a great time. Or if I
Because
was
you like
5 or
you don't
10
like
years older.
That was the process, and you don't like the process, but you like the results.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I didn't take advantage of it during the aughts. I started taking advantage of it during the tens.
No one takes advantage of it when they're supposed to, though.
That's
the
true.
point.
That's a very good point.
The best way I took advantage of the aughts was always retroactively. You know, like I would always say, like, "Oh, I remember this from the aughts, even though you fuckers don't. But we did this before, and I'm not doing that again." And usually that leads me, like, you know, it steers me right. I'm actually surprised. Like, it's only been 20 or so years, and you're already forgetting what happened in like 2005, and you're doing the same shit. Are you fucking retarded? So I don't know. That's always led me right. My thing was I learned from mistakes, not just my own mistakes, but generally mistakes.
Yes, yes.
Early aughts.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It must have been interesting to be of drinking age at that time. Because if the internet was out, people had computers, you would print out.
Well, let's
like
be real.
Google Maps directions.
Before
but-
social media, the drinking age was 14 years old.
Oh, interesting take.
It's true.
Yeah, basically. Because that's when people would start drinking.
Yeah.
I didn't drink until my early 20s.
What?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I didn't know anyone, really. I was such a shut-in. I mean, I had a few drinks before then, but I never got drunk until I was like 22 or 23.
I'll tell you what. If you grew up with us when you were like,
I would have, yeah.
you would have been way more retarded.
Yeah. Well, more retarded in some ways and less retarded in others.
Nah, I think you would have just been more retarded.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. We didn't do that much good shit.
I'm sure you didn't, yeah.
I mean, we were just like one step above the ladder above like urbanites. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like inner city people.
Yeah, urban euphemism, urban youths.
Yeah, we were just one step, well, a little tiny bit better than that, not by much. The only difference was we were not violent.
Ex-urban youths.
Yeah. We just weren't that violent, but you know,
Yeah.
we did cause trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You grow up in depends on how many youths are around and what you have. Once again, having distractions in the house just mean that you don't spend the time outside.
No, that's true. I mean, I think Zoomers still go outside. They just every time they fucking go outside, they just always have to film shit.
Yeah, they
You know,
do.
they're just always streaming.
Yeah, it's wow, what a tiresome thing.
Do
They
you think
can't
that's
just live in the moment. They can't just be outside.
That's going to become a thing, though. You know it. If
Yeah,
we
it's
thought
true.
about it, there's
as
already.
it will become a thing as a contrived thing, which is
Yeah.
different than everyone just doing it naturally.
But even when the vanguards are the ones who make
Yeah.
it contrived, though. So you got to thank them
Yeah.
for being contrived. Then the ones who come after them, they just kind of like sink into it.
Yeah.
Gotta give love to the contrived vanguards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aside from that, I mean, like, yeah, that is what it is. Like, you know, for example, with podcasting, you got the contrived vanguards like Chapo Trap House.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. The whole Chapo cell demographic was probably a particular millennial trend. It had
I have
something awful.
I have absolutely no hate for Chapo Trap House or its fans, really. You know, like, to be honest, like the most negative emotions I've had, feelings towards Chapo like fans or even, you know, the Chapo guys themselves was, you know, just kind of like sympathy, you know.
Yeah.
These people seem like they're going through hard times. I mean, they're not hurting anyone, so I can't hate them.
Yeah.
The only people they're really hurting is
Themselves.
Yeah. That's really the only way I look at, like, especially like when you're smart, well-meaning, but you're overly political, dude. First of all, you're not helping anyone, and you're definitely
Not
hurting
helping yourself.
Yeah.
You're definitely hurting someone yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
why
agree.
I don't hate these people. I don't hate any of these.
You pity them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to. Yeah, like, I don't want to put it like that, but yeah, like I want to say I sympathize, but yeah, it's kind of like pitiful almost. It's like, damn, dude, like I know you mean well, and I know you devoted so much of, even you. I consider you a political person.
That's true. No, I agree.
No. But I'm saying, but at least you're able to play in the mud. Some of these people can't even do that much. You know, like some of these people are so in a well-meaning way. Up their own asses. Like their highlight of their like month is like publishing an article on some fucking website. Like, come on, dude. Like,
that's true. I have a lot of
real life experiences, you know? Like,
yeah, that's true. I do. I always had I was coming at it from someone who didn't experience it naturally or experience it young. So I approached it in this awkward, overly meditative way. But I'm still happy to do it. I was thinking about when late summer, turning into fall, I went up on my friend's new construction roof. My friend is a tech bro, not as much of a shot at all.
Is he Russian or Eastern European?
He's from Texas. He's like Irish German. It's in Brooklyn, his place. We went up to like the 56th floor, which ostensibly it wasn't accessible to residents, but no one went up there or even bothered it. And it was a lovely view from being on the rooftop of his building. I mean, I don't know, I undercut that, but there is just a sign saying, do not enter past here, rooftop access, or something like that. And I was like, let me test this door. There's no one around. And sure enough, it's a fully lit hallway getting up to the uncovered roof. It's not a very interesting story, but neither me nor my friend had just wandered out to a place like that.
Yeah.
Something people I know normally do in their teens.
Yeah, how old are you?
35.
All right, so I got a proposition for you.
Okay.
All right, so I know you want to travel.
Yeah.
Right? And I would love to be your travel buddy. It's just I can't do that while I have to work.
Yeah.
If we could make this thing like at least
a means of income,
yes.
and we could travel and continue to record. Yes. That would be a very good aspiration. Yes.
We should do that.
I agree.
And it'll be better than just like, you know, draining your own resources on your own whims, and at least, you know, like also you'll build skills. The more you do this, the more you'll have like
presentation, broadcasting, entertainment,
and it's something to point to. It's like, oh yeah,
this is something I've been doing. Yeah.
And it's like as you take it to other places, it gets bigger and bigger. It's like, get out of here. You guys really just like left New York and came to like Australia to just see what's up. And it's like, yeah. And we probably meet some cool people between me and you know?
I agree with that.
Like two city boys.
Yeah.
Traveling across the world. Spreading love.
Increasing the terror risk in any country we go to. We show up in various third world countries, and when we arrive, suddenly a major diplomatic incident emerges.
Yeah.
And it's all just because we're raising the terror risk. Jihadists start committing terror attacks whenever we're around.
Oh my God, that sounds a little heavy.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe it's like we just bring a lot of civil disobedience and unrest. You know, if you want to go that far, like maybe that's
just leaning
nothing's off the table.
Name.
Nothing's off the table. You know, like nothing's off the fucking table. Also, it's like I don't know. But then at the same time, like I think the real terror is going to happen in America.
Really?
Yeah. Like civil unrest, balkanization.
Well, I thought that until 2020 happened. And the death toll of 2020 was surprisingly low to me. I'm glad. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it could still happen. But after experiencing 2020, I'm less inclined to believe in massive civil unrest in America. It could happen, but I don't think it will be truly chaotic. It'll be more performative.
You know what I would like to do, though?
What?
I would like to, if this did become like a source of income, I would like to make it so that you could also start your own podcast with someone. And then the person you started with could start their own podcast.
We have an economy that is then constructed around podcasting.
Not just podcasting, but more. Well, first of all, I don't look at podcasting as like it's like a trend or a fad. I just look at it as another channel, you know?
That's true, yes. It is been around for a while. It's shown its resilience, its versatility, its usability.
And it's subversive.
Yes.
It's really hard to censor it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like YouTube could censor us, but we're still on like many many platforms, and I could still put the RSI
whatever, yeah.
RSSI or whatever the fuck thing is called, and spread that like herpes.
Yeah. Everything about the podcast is a lot like an STD, I agree.
It's almost like it's specifically made to subvert the FCC.
Well, FCC isn't relevant to any of this. We're no longer dealing with Howard Stern. Did you listen to AM or FM talk radio when you were young?
Yeah.
What were you into?
Scott and Todd.
Okay, is that regional? I don't know it.
Regional, New York. There were a couple local DJs. I also liked, they were so good they actually had albums.
Yeah.
But there was also, you know, like Opie and Anthony, I guess, was okay.
Yeah. You listened to Coast AM?
I did a couple times when I was traveling, like when I was younger.
I listened to that a lot in my teens. I fucking love Coast to Coast because I was up all night.
Yeah. What I also loved was that Spawn basically, well, that is the proto podcast.
Yeah, it is.
You know what else was like,
Phil Hendry, any of the conservative talk radio show guys know? I did.
I was thinking of Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Oh, yeah, I think it's referencing Coast to Coast.
You ever see that show?
Yeah, I did.
It's a good fuck show.
Yeah, I mean, it's referencing something else. But yeah, that 90s Adult Swim era stuff.
Yeah.
What a wonderful era for animation and entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
Especially being like a teenager, being young and having nothing else to do in the house and just watching Adult Swim, the bumper music, the ads, It was a fond, formative experience.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like, I mean, as far as the podcast goes, like,
yeah,
I know how to get this podcast big. The question is, like, I just don't know if I want to do it yet.
Ooh, what would that be? Or is that not to be revealed?
Wait. I could tell. You want me to tell you right now? You want me to spoil it?
Yeah, I would be up for it. Just to fill out a little bit of time before we end the show.
Oh, we're about to end?
I don't know. We're at.
Let's do like another drink after this one.
Okay.
And then we'll tie it up because I like to count by drinks.
Okay.
That's how I was planning. I was planning it like a drink after this and we'd close it off. But like, the secret. Well, it's not even a secret. The way for us to grow this podcast is we have to get like bigger guests.
Oh yes, and you're right.
It's easy to commit to that. Like I know how to do it. The question is like, well, my first plan was with us, it's like I wanted to pay you first before I planned anything with you. You know, I wanted to show you that you could at least get something out of it. But then after I paid you, I was going to be like, hey, what if, all right, so now that and it's like by then,
I would like to have a third mic. I'd be very interested in where this podcast can go if we have a third mic every time.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. But I'm also saying like, after the 4 episodes that that you showed up as a real co-host, then it's like I could be like, so now that we have these 4, I could like start emailing people and be like, yo, could you come on with us and we could like, you know, like we'll plug you. And it's easy because these people want to be on as long as you're not going to clown them, as long as you're not going to make them look bad.
They want to appear because it's part of their business model, whatever.
And if we like their shit, then and like we're going to be doing this with or without them. That's the point. So the idea is like, you know, if you want, like we have at least like a few hundred people or whatever that would like probably see you and what you're about. Yeah. And if you're interested, then you could plug your shit into us and we'll present it. Just talk with us, you know, just hang out with us. I mean, and I don't think it's that bad of a deal, you know, it's a good deal. Like we have a good time, you know, like
I agree, we do. This is an abrupt change of pace. Did you ever do wargaming and did you ever want to? Like Warhammer or other miniatures games.
Oh, I was gonna say like wargaming, like hacking. I was gonna say that's the kind of questions like if you really did do it, you don't really talk about it.
No, I mean about tabletop gaming. I always wanted to, but my family was too poor and I was too lazy to hustle for it.
Oh, games. I actually really, really, really love games. Like not just video games, but tabletop
Non-video
games, board games.
I was thinking of as a general
I love story. I love narrative story-based
playing
games.
video games, and I want to play more tabletop games. I'm even thinking of just making a rule of not playing video games and instead only playing tabletop games with my friends, if only for like a year.
I would do that every episode if you're really willing to commit to it.
I would be very interested in it.
Cool. No, I'm willing to do it because, like, first of all, like, I'm no stranger to non-video game games. Like, dude, I shoot pool every week.
Yeah,
like, you know this about me.
I do know that.
Yeah, I shoot pool.
Did you play Magic the Gathering?
Yes.
Yeah, same.
I would play Magic. No, I never played.
You never played? Okay.
No, I played Yu-Gi-Oh.
Okay.
I also played Pokemon.
Yeah. But you never played Magic. Okay, interesting. I played a lot of Magic.
I would love Magic.
I would love
if I knew the rules.
Huge breaks from playing Magic, and then I returned to it for brief periods of intensity, and then stopped playing again.
The only reason why I never play these games that I would love to play is because I don't have anyone to play with. Mm-hmm. There's no point in playing these games if you don't have anyone to play with. You know, like so. Yeah. I mean, you can find them, but that's its own task, and that's its own. I'm willing to do it if I have the time to spare.
You ever play D&D?
Yeah, but I was never like serious about it where I completed a campaign.
Yeah, I've completed campaigns, but I at the same time never played it.
I feel like now that
I always wanted to play more than I ever did.
But when I tried it, I was like 11. I was like 12.
Oh damn, yeah.
But you know, like we tried our best. It's just school got in the way and shit. It's just
you're not fully. It's a game. D&D.
It's a mature game.
D&D is much better at 16 than at 12.
However, because
that makes and afterwards you do gradually improve, but there's a huge leap in competence at playing the game when you get to your like mid-late teens. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I was gonna say, like, I was super into it when I tried it as a kid. We all tried, but we were just too busy. Yeah. But if I tried it now as an adult, I think I would be super duper into it. I would be like really into it because it's really just, first of all, it's learning the frameworks, it's learning mechanics, it's learning the principles of those mechanics, and then applying them to your narrative storytelling.
Yeah, it is.
Which I love the idea of, and I don't mind doing either role. It's just it's basically I'm just glad to be here kind of thing. You know, it's like that's my approach to these things. It's like, hey,
I played Magic. I barely played Pokemon. But I was not interested because I already had Magic experience.
Yeah. Well, the
Magic was so much more engaging to me than Pokemon.
And the reason why these things are not just like passionately relevant, like they're not just relevant to our emotions, but there's money in these things, like card games especially.
Yeah.
But as far as tabletop games, that's
I always wanted to play Warhammer, but I wasn't interested in the paint part. It seemed too tedious to me. It was too costly. And apparently the actual gameplay mechanics aren't that engaging.
My favorite games were I had this one, I'm pretty sure, I don't know what was wrong with him. He was a brilliant kid. We were too young for me to like, I'd have to see him now as an adult to like tell you, but we were like in elementary school. We were in 5th grade.
What was his name? His ethnicity? What was he like? If you want to say.
He was Italian Catholic. His name was Adam. Mm-hmm. And he was not good at being like social, like one of the kids, but he was really good at making games. Me and him spent a lot of time together where he would just he would draw mazes and he would just like, all right, you got to do this and you get this and you get this weapon. And I would just play these games with him. And at the time, like, I didn't realize what that was, like how nuanced and how interesting that was.
Yeah.
I was just along for the ride. I was glad to be there.
Yeah.
But now looking back, I'm like, that kid was different. You know, like he was a game maker.
Yeah. Designer. Yeah.
But that kind of gave me the idea. It's like I would like, what if we played a game that we made? You know, I'm sure we can make, like, you don't have to make it that complicated. You could make an entire game out of just coin flips.
Yeah.
That's very engaging, very interesting, and very revealing about you.
Yes.
You know, like that's what these games ultimately are. Like all tabletop games are ultimately just a means. Like, you know how a psychologist plays a board game with a patient so that they could kind of, that's what they are.
Yeah.
Except more for fun and less for therapeutic devices, you know? So yeah, that's my whole take. I would love to play tabletop games. Yeah. Do you want me to set one up? We could try like a 2-player game or whatever. Maybe I'll do something casual.
I have I just
Well,
bought.
we'll do a 1-player game. I'll craft it and then you could play along.
Yeah, I would do that. I was gonna
If
say,
there's one thing I love doing is storytelling. I love
Yeah.
crafting stories. You know why I love crafting stories?
why is that?
Because I finally figured it out. I finally figured out how to craft a story. You know, like I finally figured out. Like I'm not trying to be reductive. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying. But I am pointing to a framework of a story.
Yes.
There's different frameworks, but they follow the same rhyming scheme. You know, they're like the same shape. And you could look at it as a circle, a straight line, whatever. It's a path of progression. You know, you could look at it as a climb up a mountain or whatever. But yeah, once I learned story structure, it made me very interesting because I know I could tell a story. You want me to tell a story right now? I can make one.
Yeah,
off the
sure.
top of my-
Tell a story right now.
All right. Once upon a time, there was a boy who really, really, really liked a girl. And this girl was super into podcasts. She listened to true crime podcasts, relationship podcasts, trashy Zoomer podcasts.
She listened to girl podcasts.
She listened to all the podcasts, the boy podcast, the girl podcast, all the podcasts.
She even listened to Joe Rogan Experience.
Yes, all
Wow.
of that. So then this boy was like, okay, so if I want to get this girl's attention, then I'm going to start a podcast. So he does. And when he gets that desire, when he realizes that's what he must do, he realizes, wait a minute, I have a friend who has a podcast. I mean, it's not very good. It's a pretty bad podcast. You know, it's just him by himself playing video games. And sometimes he has his friend come over and talk with him, but it's not really interesting. I mean, I bet I could make it more interesting. I know about politics. I know about classical literature. I know about philosophy. I bet I could inject my own expertise into their podcast. So he calls up his friend, you know, with this grand plan. It's like, hey, you know, I know you know the production, I know you know all this, but I know the content, and together we can make a team. We can make something solid, and we can make something great together. And in his mind, he's like, if I can make it good enough, maybe she will notice me finally, and then I could brag to her, and she'll go out with me. So he does, and he does this whole process. He tries to make a podcast and realizes it's a lot harder than it looks, and the production is a lot more significant. However, his producer friend is only encouraging. You know, his producer friend that he decides to make the podcast with decides, hey, you know what? This guy seems to be very passionate, at least, and he brings really good ideas to the table. So yeah, this could work, and I'm going to teach him some of my stuff, and I'm going to show him the production side of it. So they work together further, and they make very engaging podcast episodes to the point where it actually generates traction. It generates popularity. I mean, the girl still hasn't noticed, but it's almost like he's forgetting about the girl because there's so many other interesting people that are noticing, trying to talk to them, trying to ask them to hang out, inviting them over to different places in the world and all sorts of things. And eventually the podcast gets so big, so successful where he doesn't even have to work anymore. He doesn't have to go to college. Him and his friend are literally doing this full time. He doesn't even think about the girl anymore. So they keep podcasting together. They're living the good life. He's going out with a new girl.
Yeah.
Right?
Who was born a man.
No, he's going out with a new girl who is a YouTuber, a streamer, a gamer, who's not the original girl of his dreams, but she's great. And you know, he likes her. And who the fuck was that old girl anyway? So, you know, they go out together and whatever. And things are going great. Him and his buddy are making a lot of money. Him and his new girl are collaborating. They're making a lot of money. Everything's going great. And they're partying. They're seeing the world. They're living for the day every single day. And then eventually they start getting into rich people parties and they start doing drugs and they start having even greater experiences. Eventually they start losing sleep and they stop remembering to podcast altogether. You know, they're just so caught up with the lifestyle and everything. Eventually things start to fall apart. You know, like the friend gets too caught up with his own shit, gets too caught up with drugs. He stops podcasting and the guy, the main character, he's already like, you know, I got my girl. Well, who needs this podcast anyway? But then the girl starts noticing, hey, people aren't talking about you as much and you're not as popular anymore. So I think I'm going to leave you. And he and the main character,
What ups and downs of this individual's life.
and the guy,
the podcaster who didn't intend to become a podcaster.
and the guy who started this whole thing just to impress this one girl, right? Decides, what the fuck, like I did all of this shit just to impress that girl. I don't even think about her anymore, and I got distracted by this other girl who just left me just because I stopped podcasting and want to live life. Like, what the fuck? Now I have nothing and nobody, and I just have a little bit of money left because we stopped podcasting ages ago, and now what the fuck am I gonna do? So he gets on a self-improvement kick. He starts forgetting about other people, forgetting about popularity, forgetting about social clout. He starts working out, eating better, getting sleep, staying away from drugs and whatever. And eventually he starts building a life for himself. He gets his money back up without podcasting, without other people, literally just from being useful, literally just from his own content. He records his journey. He literally just says, like, this is what I did. This is how I went from zero to nothing, all this fucked up shit. And this is what I went through. And all those skills I accumulated and just spent on partying, now I use them for a purpose, which is getting my life back on track. And this is my journey. And inspired so many people, including someone unexpected. Guess what? Guess who hits him up in his DMs on Twitter?
The original girl.
The original girl. And she says to him, hey, life has been pretty hard for me, and I noticed your new content lately, and I thought you were just and I thought you were just some fucking successful dickhead, like, content creator, but you actually went through a real experience that resonated with me, and I'm glad, like, I ran into your content again, and I'm glad I actually know you, and do you want to meet up and hang out? And he says, yeah, sure. So he meets up with this girl, and they're well into their like early 30s now, and at this point, she has a kid, but she's divorced, and he's, he's happy with himself, but he's still alone. And he meets this girl, and she has a kid, and and they catch up on old times, and finally he doesn't feel like he's trying to impress anyone. He doesn't feel like he's trying to fill a quota. He doesn't feel like he's trying to make content. He just feels like he could be himself with the person that he originally wanted to do this whole thing before all of it. And they decide, all right, we should go out for dinner sometime, and that's it. That's the end of the story.
It's a good story.
See, I told you I could make up a story.
The tooth at the end. At the beginning it was stronger, but I don't know. I wasn't providing anything. But yes, a good story.
Yeah. See, I could make a fucking story, dude. I know how stories work. I know how to.
Yeah.
I know when to inject conflict. I know when to add twists. I know when to give you a happy ending if that's what it's leaning towards.
Yeah, you're gonna jerk off the audience.
Yeah. Dude, and you know what? I don't do this spitefully. I do this with love. I love this. Like, I love creating this. Like, I love creating that. I basically gave you a movie. I gave you a whole fucking movie plot. I get it. Like, I see the shape of a story. Like, I know it. I could do this, and I want to do this, and it's just, I don't know. I'll just keep doing it. I'll keep podcasting, and I'll keep living that story. Well, I mean, that story was not me.
Living that life.
Yeah. No, that wasn't me, though. That was an amalgamation of, like, everyone I know in my life just, like, put into different characters, It's a good story because
it is because you're drawing from real life.
Yes.
I'm drawing from people you know. You have clear inspiration.
Because the characters feel real. And therefore, the story feels real because the characters are drawn from different pieces of real people. So yeah, that's just one example of how to make a story on the fly. And I could have gone harder. I could have really hit you in the heart if I wanted to. But
yes,
just on the fly, like, that's what it is. That's how it's done. You create a hero figure, like a fool figure, who doesn't know, who just wants something, and then he has to go through something that destroys him, and he has to go through redemption arc, and he has to go through a sacrifice and all that shit. And this is all just so you have a better journal entry, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, dude, storytelling. So look, I don't want to just float storytelling by as if it's some fucking like a random skill like haircutting or plumbing. No, storytelling is like the basis of human development.
Well, think about this. There's a lot more storytelling in most of humanity's past than very recently. In pre-literate societies, there's a ton of storytelling, and even with literacy, until widespread literacy and then more advanced forms of entertainment like the movies came out, or radio or television or video games, Most entertainment is just people entertaining each other like this.
It's kind of classic. I mean, well, I think it also works. I mean, because that's basically to me, that's my favorite kind of podcast, like the campfire kind of vibe.
Yeah.
It's what it should be.
The campfire, the illumination of your lamp, and our cigarettes.
And the candle.
Yeah.
Fire.
Does it actually neutralize odor in this room, this candle?
Yes.
Really interesting.
Yeah. It when I cook beef,
Yeah.
it neutralizes the meat smell pretty well. If I do say so myself.
The Nag Champa candle with a 8-spoke wheel.
Do you think people are poetic without meaning to be?
Yes, many times.
Like what the it does neutralize the smell quite well, if I do say so myself.
Yes, I think we're both impressed by this.
No, it's not just it's not an impressive thing. It's just I think like maybe I just pay attention to words more. You know, that's really what it is. That's all it is. I don't take words for granted anymore. I think they're very, very, very important for crafting reality and whatnot. I know you're itching to get off the podcast, but it's getting so good. I'm just trying to milk it.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry for being distracted here. Or
no, it's all good. It's just it's getting really good now. You know?
Yeah, it is. We should, if only we could jump right into this.
No, you can't. It's a process.
It's
called alchemy for a reason. Anyway, you have a bit of your
alcohol. Me,
yeah,
alcohol. Me, I'm drinking more.
But you know, this is the way it's supposed to be. People should have to work their way to this part. You know, like people should have to sit through the bad part to get to this good part.
Yeah, I always wanted to play a tabletop war game like Warhammer, but I was always too poor, and also the painting or customizing of figurines was never of interest to me.
Why? You know why? It's because you never had another friend to do it with you.
That's true, yes.
I'll do it with you.
Oh, thanks.
Let's get into Warhammer.
No, I was going to suggest, have you heard of Gaslands? I just got the rule book for it. It's a Mad Max Warhammer.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
You get Hot Wheels or other Matchbox cars, and you do small edits to them to make them into Mad Max vehicles.
I want to play any tabletop game that could scale infinitely. For example, like we could play it on the small scale, like, for this scenario, we only have 2 of each unit. Or for this scenario, if we could afford it, we have like a whole like room size thing. Games that could scale, that's important.
Yes, this can scale. Not to a whole room, but it's 2 to 8 players and various amounts of vehicles.
Yeah. There should be all sorts of tabletop, like a samurai tabletop game.
There are plenty of different tabletop games. Try something outside the beaten path of Warhammer, Dungeons and Dragons.
I mean, what I did notice for a certain time, they tried to introduce it to like conventional, like Toys R Us standards.
Yes.
But video games came out, and that kind of put the kibosh in the whole thing.
Video games really destroyed it. Not destroyed it, reduced it to a very small population.
Of course. I think it just aged the population. You know, like all the things like tabletop games it's meant for older people now. Like
it is.
Card games even.
Yes, I agree.
The most engaging thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Was that kids my age were playing it, but the most engaging thing about Magic was I read articles about a guy who won a tournament on shrooms. You know, he was like, I was a true planeswalker. Like, you don't even understand.
Yeah.
And they showed a picture of like all the winning panels, like before the
Everyone's a fat bearded guy, and
the one guy who was on shrooms, like you could tell he was on shrooms.
And he's probably a different personality or different archetype or body.
Yeah.
Type.
I gotta show you this fucking picture.
Yeah, go ahead.
But the article is really good. I mean,
I bet.
It basically read like how I would tell the story. Like if this actually happened to me, which it kind of did in that sense, where it's like the sword tournament. All right, guess which guy was on shrooms?
The guy in the front of the orange.
Yeah. It's so good.
That is.
The story's really good too, but when I won the sword tournament, it kind of felt like that. You know, I was like, "Are you serious?" Because I was like, but months before that, I was like, "I'm gonna shave my head if I don't win this." And it was like kind of like taking shrooms. I was like, "Am I gonna win this? Like, am I gonna have to shave my head?"
Yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't like magic, like a card. It was like, we were fighting each other with like swords and shit. Supposedly, simulated.
Yeah.
But it still hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
I know you had your big tournament win.
That was I'll never forget
while
that.
ago,
That was
yeah.
a life-changing moment for me.
When was it? What year was it? What month was it?
2023, June.
Okay.
It was also the month of my
2023.
spiritual awakening.
Interesting. Fitting. They go along well together.
I mean, one trigger. It didn't trigger.
One triggered, one
No.
enabled.
It enabled it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I take it was the sword championship win led to the spiritual enlightenment.
No, it primed me for it. It put
Primed
me in a
you, okay.
state where I was willing to accept it. And what triggered it was David Grush coming before Congress and talking about like UFO retrieval. That triggered the sword tournament, put me sky high, like ego wise, feelings wise, body wise, like literally everything. I was like perfectly aligned and like amplified aligned. But the David Grush thing just stuck a pin in my bubble and just gave me like a severe existential crisis, because this is
Interesting.
beyond this was serious shit. This was
Yeah.
a real intelligence, whether it was a lie or truth. Either way, it meant the government was lying to us in a very substantial way, and that
Yeah.
gave me such an existential crisis where it made me like die down conspiracy theories and all that shit.
Yeah. I see
Either
that.
way, though, at the end of all of that, it was like I had to ask the questions like, what's the solution? So of course I looked it up, and every site, every blog, every article, every commenter, they all agree the consensus was raise your consciousness. And I was like, what does that mean? Raise your consciousness. And when I thought about it, I started writing more, because
Yeah.
by then I was journaling because of semen retention on a self-improvement
Yeah,
kit.
yeah.
But by that, so that's what triggered journaling. But it was like I said, it's all just alignment, like I was like, while I was journaling, I went through that, and I was like, so I wrote down like what I was thinking as I pondered raise your consciousness, and it's like, oh, I get it. It's like you are the universe. You're a focal point of the universe experiencing itself. The universe is conscious. The universe is called God.
Yeah.
And God is real. Like all that shit. And that just, again, like you see, I'm painting the slippery slope here. It's
Right.
like you just slip down that slope and you're like, oh, fuck. And most people in that situation would have gone insane. And I've seen many who have. But the reason why I didn't go insane was because after I went through that, I was like, my heart was like pumping like super fast. I felt buzzing in my head. I was like woozy, and my body was like contracting, like natural, like mudras and shit, like yogic positions that I was never educated on. But it's like I was just contracting to that natural position, all weird shit. And at that time, I was like, the next day, I was like, oh shit, I have to teach a sword class tomorrow.
Yeah.
The martial arts kept me grounded and not schizo. The martial arts kept me. It made me able to discern what was real and what wasn't,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who go through such an experience don't have something to keep them grounded, like martial arts or sports or...
Yeah, that's the physical element,
Yeah.
the body part. He
Yeah.
was grounded. And a lot of people, especially nowadays, do not have a body element that keeps them grounded.
Yes. So that's why you have wooks and you have a lot of those crystal hose and...
Yeah. Trance, frankly, is in part derived from
Yes,
being
yeah.
detached from your body.
Well, you know what? So is Karl Marx.
The focus on an economic fetishism detracts you from day-to-day life.
Far removed from Socrates or Aristotle.
He's
yeah.
removed from the
Analytic.
spiritual motivation throughout human history. He reduces everything to an economic motivation.
And you know who was the one to bring it back? It was guys like Jung and Nietzsche.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also Kierkegaard, honestly, in a weird way, because here's the thing: like Nietzsche and Kierkegaard had two really important
they're
ideas.
both proto-existentialists, but yes,
they all have ideas that are both clashing but also harmonizing.
yes,
It's Kierkegaard's Knight of Faith and Nietzsche's Übermensch.
yes.
So the way I would just a good analogy for this or a good portrayal of this would be like neither is good the superior over the other. They're both pretty much equal in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
the Ubermensch and the Knight of Faith.
Hmm?
It vaguely reminds me of like the Sith and the Jedi.
Yes, go on.
And like alone, like if all I knew was Nietzsche, I would be infatuated, enamored with the Ubermensch concept. But if all I knew was Kierkegaard, I'll be infatuated and enamored with the idea of the Knight of Faith. But because I'm aware of both, I see where they collide, and they're the same thing except of a belief in a higher power. However, I think they can reconcile.
Yes,
and
go on.
in a way where this is where spirituality comes into play, where Nietzsche says man could become God, whereas Kierkegaard say man could become the ultimate servant of God, where he's better than any other being. So the way I see it is, both of them are kind of missing this one thing where it's like, you know how I say everyone's the same soul living out different lifetimes in different bodies? What that really means is there's only God's soul, and God splits his soul, projects his consciousness, and filters it through like fractalizations to become Carmen or Chris or the cat or the dog,
Or the inanimate objects surrounding us.
Exactly.
Such as your mic stand or this regular stand or this table. Yes.
Or every sperm cell or every egg cell.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's generally what I believe. And I think like if you look at it that way, the Ubermensch and the Knight of Faith can reconcile, because the Knight of Faith is about being the ultimate servant to God, whereas the Ubermensch is about being the God. But with this perspective, they are one and the same.
Yes.
Which is what Gnosticism was really about, but for some reason, neither Kierkegaard or Nietzsche really kind of got into metaphysics.
Exposure.
Well, actually, no, they both got into metaphysics. 100%. Yeah. They didn't get into that idea of Godhead fractalization, Gnosticism.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
I don't know. I mean, part of it was their level of what they were exposed to. Perhaps if they were exposed to more Eastern things, they would have.
Also, maybe they viewed their works as more contained things. Like,
yes, that's true too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you got to finish your drink. All right, we got one more topic.
More topic. Okay. Fuck.
If there was one sport you should do,
what's that? Karate?
No, shooting pool.
Shooting pool. Yeah, that would be actually a good sport to learn.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. It'd be something that could be done outside. It's manual dexterity focus.
But the thing is, it's like for you, it's like shooting pool would be like going up to a muscular, like 6 foot tall guy and be like, I bet you can play basketball. And sometimes not every 6 foot muscular tall guy could play basketball. And if he can't play basketball, he's gonna feel it's gonna hit him really hard. He's like, how could I not do this? But that's just the way it is. So if you're not good at pool, you can't let it discourage you, because you're built. It's almost like you're built for pool.
Ooh, really? How so?
You got the long extended limbs,
the long wingspan, the odd insectile movements,
the eye for detail, the imagination.
Interesting. That would be something I would love to learn, how to play pool.
I play every week. You should come with me, man.
I would love to. When do you play pool?
On Fridays.
Fridays, okay. Here in Staten Island, do you go into Manhattan or
No,
Brooklyn?
I could go wherever. I'll go wherever to play pool.
Okay. Keep it in mind. I want to learn how to play pool, and I would love.
It's a fun game. It is the ultimate tabletop game.
Yeah, well, it's literally tabletop. Yeah.
Apparently, I heard the whole purpose, like it was gifted to I think the British or something.
Yeah.
Or the British gifted it to someone else, maybe the Americans. But the game was gifted with the sole purpose, knowing that it's going to start fights.
Interesting.
Like, we know this game is too complicated for you brutes, and we know you're going to fight over it and argue over the details, so we shall give it to you in hopes that it'll sabotage your camaraderie. Supposedly. Also, this summer, we're going to do a lot of bike riding.
I agree. We're going to do a lot of bike riding.
Got to get you a bike.
I know. I know I have a lot of drink. Well, not really. I have like a shot to finish, but
No. All right, we'll close it off.
Cheers.
Thank you all for watching. Yep, it's been a
Thank
real
you for joining us for this.
yeah, it's been a real pleasure.
Have a wonderful night, guys.